Hello, hello.
Okay,
You guys hear
I'm
me?
guessing yes, we can hear you. Oh, hey,
Great.
Matt, how's it going? Okay,
Good, thanks.
good. Okay, with that, are we live? Gonna,
Yes, we are.
okay, very good. So, good evening, everyone. I am going to call to order the Durham Public Schools Board of Education in our monthly meeting. The Durham Public Schools Board of Education regular monthly meeting is now in session. At this time, we wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us this evening. The purpose of this meeting is to inform our parents, staff, and constituents about the work aligned with our mission to embrace, educate, and empower every student to innovate, serve, and lead. Tonight, the administration will be presenting information to keep you up to date on our strategic plan. The interpreter for tonight is Lucero Vasquez. Mr. Vasquez is an interpreter with 17 years of experience. Thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. Now, we're doing things a little bit differently today due to the COVID-19 virus. We're obviously doing our meeting via Zoom from the comforts of our own home or separated. I'm going to ask the public to bear with us as this is our first time having to do this. As custom, I usually start the meeting off with a moment of silence. There's a couple things I'd like to point out in our moment of silence. First is the obvious, the COVID-19 virus scare that is making changes in our lives many of us were not prepared for. So as we go into a moment of silence, I ask that you all think about, those impacted, which is almost everyone, those who cannot be at home during this time, our healthcare workers, our law enforcement and people of that sort. And also outside of the COVID-19 virus, I'd like to take a moment and include this into our moment of silence. Our state representative, Mary Ann Black, passed, I believe, today. She was a warrior for public education. She was a warrior for people in Durham. She has always offered support for anything that we needed in Durham Public Schools. While she was in office, she's always been a friend of Durham Public Schools. North Carolina lost a rock star for education and for our community in Mary Ann Black with her passing. So as we go into this moment of silence, I ask that you all take a moment to think about her family, think about her constituents, the people of North Carolina, and her legacy she will leave in public school and service in North Carolina. So please join me in a moment of silence as we start our meeting. Thank you all. The next item on our agenda is the superintendent's update. Dr. Mabenga.
Good evening, Chairman Lee, members of the board. I think, Mr. Lee, you called me off guard as you just announced about the passing of Mary Ann Black. I was not aware of that. She was a champion for us. She's done a lot. And I think the last bill that she was trying to push through for teacher housing, will always be grateful to her. This is really unprecedented time as we're dealing with COVID-19. As a part of superintendent update tonight, I'm going to do some intro, then my team, they will pick up from that, and they have a PowerPoint that they will go through. I just want to refresh our memory. The first week as we're dealing with this COVID-19, DPS was on spring break. And I remember a lot of calls that I received from our parents, our constituent, wanted to know, what are we going to do as far as feeding our students? So we were proactive. I met in my office, in my conference room, with 4 ladies. I think one of them was on a conference call. Those are really leaders in the community. And one of them, Megan was the executive director for DPS Education Foundation. So they knew the needs of feeding our students. So they took the mission with them, they ran with it, and they were able to raise more than $87,000 just to be able to feed our students. For that reason, I'm very grateful. So they did a wonderful job for us. They started feeding our families on that particular weekend. And they were very transparent to share with us how much they were able to spend and what they got remaining. And they're going to continue with that work as we're going through this pandemic. Members of the board, now we're talking about remote learning. I just wanted to define what remote learning means. I know there is a misunderstanding to some folks. When we're talking about remote learning, some folks just think about digital learning. Remote learning means digital, and that also can be printed materials as well. So at DPS, we were pretty much a champion in the state. I think even our governor was able to mention us, even though he did not cite the name of the district. That was really creative. So we heard from our parents, we heard from our families, we heard from our community. We really wanted to continue with learning as well, making sure, and especially our classified employees, they were paid. That's what we did, and that's what we're doing. As far as remote learning is concerned, I just wanted to refresh our memories. We have 3-to-1 devices for our students. Anytime I meet with my colleagues to hear some reports, even some of our neighboring districts that have 1-to-1, we are in Durham, and we can do better. If we have to go 1-to-1, roughly about $8 to $10 million that we're gonna need to be 1-to-1. This pandemic, even when you listen to experts, nobody knows when this is gonna stop. So that's an investment that not only DPS, but the whole community of Durham, business community, and whoever's interested in Durham public schools should be involved to help us to get to that 1-to-1 initiative. 1-to-1 initiative is going to give us a lot of flexibility anytime we're dealing with inclement weather to be able to continue with learning. $10 million, that's just roughly to begin with, but we gotta have a plan to be able to sustain that. But in the meantime, while we don't have 1-to-1, I can assure to our community and our parents as well that learning will continue. The first 2 weeks that we were able to deploy learning packages in our community, we called that particular initiative was pretty much supplemental materials. Now that governor was able to extend that closure till May 15, our team has been brainstorming how can we better improve the learning of our students. You're gonna hear Dr. Hardy. She'll be using 3 main phrases. One of them is going to be accelerating learning. The other one is going to be enrichment. Then the third one is going to be remediation. And no points as leaders in our district would like for our students to be stagnant. Yes, I said this before, even when I met with our principals, one of our core values at DPS is equity. And we have to respect equity. And at the same time as we're respecting equity, we also believe in mastery learning. We also believe in differentiating instructions. those are the things that Dr. Hardy will be able to elaborate as we're dealing with this pandemic. I'm going to take this opportunity as well because I know I'm going to introduce him in a few minutes as well. Dr. Monk will be doing some presentation as well. Julius Monk defended his dissertation about 2 or 3 weeks ago from UNC Greensboro, and I'm really proud to call him today Dr. Monk. So I said this to him before, and I'm going to say it. It was a good hire. And I'm really impressed the way that he's mobilizing the whole operation team to be able to feed our families. And he's going to give you more details on how we're doing this work. So if I can summarize myself to our parents, we are here to serve our students. We're going to do the best we can with all the devices that we have and with all the skills that we have to make sure that our students, they are going to continue with learning. So without further ado, I think either Dr. Monk or Dr. Hardy, one of them will be able to be the next speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Mabinga, and congratulations, Dr. Monk. We've been celebrating him and we're extremely proud. I think Ms. McNulty is going to display the presentation. If someone can let me know when that's ready or showing on the screen.
We can see the screen.
Dr. Hardy, go ahead.
Okay, and are you going to go into slideshow view?
Yes, just shortly.
So thank you, Dr. Mabinga. Tonight, we would like to provide an update to our board and our community regarding our COVID-19. If you'll go ahead and go to the agenda slide. This presentation tonight will provide an update on our current efforts and provide specific details regarding our next phase, as well as our next steps and questions and discussion. Next slide, please. As you can see, this slide summarizes our current efforts, and we are extraordinarily proud at what we have been able to provide to our community and families. We have provided over 34,000 meals to families and have had over 175 child nutrition staff supporting this effort. Over 43,000 instructional packets supported by our curriculum instruction and academic services team. 242 drivers have driven over 3,000 miles to provide food and instructional learning to over 80 sites. Dr. Anderson's team with 195 custodial and 70 maintenance staff have disinfected over 5 million square feet. Dr. Danner's team in professional learning have provided over 220 offerings for both our certified and classified staff during this time. We have had 12 formal Corona task force meetings and multiple calls. Dr. Mabinga participates in our large district consortium as well as North Carolina Superintendent calls. Dr. Monk participates in calls with the Council of Great City Schools, and I participate in our state chief academic officer calls as well as the large district consortium calls. We have had over 46,000 hits on our COVID-19 DPS page. Next slide, please. This time, I will turn it over to Dr. Monk to talk us through our support and our efforts with our feeding program across the district.
All right, good evening, everyone. As Dr. Mabinga alluded to, these are certainly unprecedented times, and the guidance for battling COVID-19 really go against everything in our normal tendencies of congregation during times of crisis and natural disaster, as well as against what we like to do as educators to feel that connectedness to our students and our families, which has increasingly made us be more agile in what seems to be ever-changing situations and new things to do every day. But we hope that this is temporary and that social distancing will one day be a thing of the past and we can get back to normal. But in the meantime, we've taken some steps to make sure that we're mitigating the transmission of COVID-19 while we're distributing our meals and our instructional packages to our students. And so this slide indicates what some of those mitigating factors are. We have created our own training video that was provided to our instructional assistant staff as well as our transportation and school nutrition staffs. They were all given thermometers whenever they come to work to check their temperatures prior to beginning work. And that's for those who don't have thermometers at home. We ask that if you have a temperature over 100 degrees, that you don't even come in that day. You just let us know what's going on. We're also providing personal protective equipment, such as latex gloves. We distributed the field staff guidance, which is the same guidance that our public health department uses whenever they're interacting with people in the community. And then we have to continually reinforce social distancing, disinfecting our work areas, and hand hygiene. That is something that we have to do every day, not only to protect ourselves, but to protect others. Next slide, please. So we believe that our site selection process really embraces our call to meet students where they are. And that's symbolized by a spark pen, and it's also symbolized by this map that you see before you. So those areas that are circled in red indicate places where our median household income is between $0 and $38,000. So we micro-targeted the areas that we knew that we had to get food into. Next slide, please. And so from this map that you see all those spark pins at, those are all the locations that we're serving our families at. And this is from an interactive map that we have on our website where you can click on either of those spark pins, and then it will tell you the name of the site that you clicked on and how you are to obtain the meal there. So in this case, it's Brogdon Middle School, and it says that it's a grab and go site where you enter through the car line, and it's open from 11 to noon. It also has the address. So if we have to make quick changes for meal sites, if we're seeing, one isn't getting the frequency that we thought and something is happening at another one, we can make those adjustments so that we can get our families served. Next slide, please. And so our sites, we have 81 sites. They're composed of our school sites, which are 17, 13 of which we cook on. The other 4 are just neighborhood hubs, as well as 50 other community and housing sites. But beyond that, we also are taking our food to our McKinney-Vento students. We work by working with our McKinney-Vento specialist, Ms. Thomas, as well as our social services folks, and the McDougal hotel sites, because we recognize that there are still people that are displaced, and we want to make sure that they're getting their meals as well. Next slide, please. So here you can see all the different departments and divisions that are involved in this effort. And it is truly an effort that has been undertaken by the entire district. There are too many names for me to name with too many talents, but we have done yeoman's work here, and I am so proud to be a part of this team. Next slide. One of our external partners, and Dr. Mbenga has talked about them earlier as well, is our Durham Public Schools Foundation. They have really stepped up and filled a lot of gaps for us. We are allowed to feed students or children 18 and below, but the Durham Public School Foundation have also been reaching out and feeding whole families. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay, great. And so from this, you can see that there's been 1,000 family meal kits put together, so about 4,000 meals, because they do 4 meals per each kit. They've had over 100 volunteer drivers, and they also have implemented health precautions to ensure that they are, again, making sure they're taking care of their volunteers, as well as the community that they're serving. Next slide, please. What's next for us is this weekend, they'll be at it again, delivering meals directly to the doors and filling that gap for where we don't deliver meals on the weekend. They're also looking to expand their resources to get books in our homes and diapers and other needs. We have a lot of community organizations, both private and public, as well as individuals that would like to donate to Durham Public Schools. And the foundation has been a great partner in acting as a liaison between them and really cutting down on the amount of congregation that needs to happen on our sites as we practice that social distancing and delivering much needed items directly to folks' doorstep. And they're also looking at ways that we can be good partners and community folks with people outside of Durham. We're in the education field, and so we always want to be lifetime learners and lifetime sharers of education. Next slide, please. So just to recap of what they've done, 840 donors. They raised over $110,000, which has gone towards food and supplies for our families. And we've also included the contact information, which you can also find on our website for Megan Gonzalez-Smith, who is, she and I talk almost daily. As a matter of fact, we talked today about the need of finding a way to get more latex gloves, which is one of the critical PPEs for both her organization and the staff at DPS for us to continue to serve meals because we need to make sure that that we're protecting ourselves and not passing anything along. So sanitizer, hand washing, gloves, these are all things that are critical to our mission and keeping moving forward. All right, next slide, please. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about what's going to happen in phase 2. Next slide. All right, and so from the operation standpoint, we're keeping on as business as usual for the most part. Our facilities still have to be maintained, even though we've disinfected over 5.4 million square feet of our facilities. There's some deep cleaning that we wouldn't otherwise be able to do whenever school is in, that we're going to continue with doing. There's also projects such as HVAC, painting, a whole host of things that, again, we can't do whenever the schools are fully occupied. And we are making these projects available to our staff so that they have work that they can do, you know, bus drivers when they're not driving or getting professional development, they can participate in some of these items as well. And then we're going to get a jump start on some much needed summer projects that we would do, like roofing projects and things like that. So we're going to continue to maintain our facilities and make sure they're in good repair and waiting for our students whenever they return soon. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Atkins.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to go over a couple of items related to staff and to provide a staff update. We're really proud to say that our principals and central office leaders have been very flexible and innovative. As Dr. Hardy mentioned, our professional learning team has included course offerings for both certified and classified staff. We have, as we've shared with our supervisors, this is a wonderful opportunity for some of our classified staff to participate in professional learning opportunities. So we're really excited about that. As of 6:50 this evening, I just toggled over and checked on we have kind of a remote work tracking, and we have 14,808 entries as of 6:50 this evening. So as I mentioned, our principals and central office supervisors have been very accommodating and flexible with our staff in providing work from home opportunities, and the majority of our employees are currently working from home. As Dr. Monk mentioned, we do have essential functions and staff. As we know in Mayor Schul's order, it definitely excludes school districts, as we are currently providing educational services, cleaning and maintaining our schools, providing meals, as you just heard about, conducting distance learning, and other necessary functions. We did send an all DPS staff email to clarify that yesterday. And so we will continue to communicate with our staff of any guidance that becomes available, local, state, or federal. One of the things that we are doing is just today we talked about, we are exploring whether we can equitably provide a possible stipend for DPS employees who currently interact with the public, serving our students and families, for example, distributing food and instructional materials and things like that. So stay tuned for more information. Like I said, we just discussed it today in light of the local stay-at-home order announced yesterday. But again, we are exploring that possibility. Lastly, I did want to mention that the last time we met, I believe March 12th, we talked a little bit about some concerns, some very justifiable concerns about whether our employees get sick and whether they would have to exhaust their sick leave or take their current sick leave. The federal law that was passed to expand FMLA and emergency paid sick leave was passed on March 18th. And we, all employers who fall under this category, have to enact something by April 1st. Being Durham and ahead of the game like we are going to enact ours on Monday, March 30th. And so we're going to be talking about it with principals and central office supervisors tomorrow, so they have a really thorough understanding of the new legislation, and then certainly roll it out to our employees. We just got a flyer, a poster, a federally approved poster today, this afternoon, and so we will be distributing that widely. There's an FAQ that comes along with that to say, most people are working remotely. How do we distribute that? Typically, we post that in areas that are well seen, but the federal government fortunately has provided some FAQs for how we get that out to staff so that it's widely known, understood, and distributed. Our HR team is hard at work on developing a process. They've completed it today so that we're ready to go on Monday for when we roll this out. Just to give you a basic overview of what it is, the expanded FMLA is available for employees who are experiencing a lack of childcare. So they're unable to work due to their childcare center being closed or childcare unavailable. That also applies to employees who are working remotely. And so there are some, like I said, expanded FMLA guidelines for that. Employees can get up to 12 weeks. And then along with that, there's another piece of legislation that extends emergency paid sick leave benefits to employees who do get sick as a result of COVID-19 or who are experiencing symptoms or who have to self-quarantine. So there are some nuances to both of those pieces of legislation. And like I said, we're going to be providing full guidance as soon as we talk to our principals and central office supervisors who have a thorough understanding so that they can also field questions. And this is to be rolled out on Monday. And that's all I had.
Next slide, please. As Dr. Mabenga indicated, we are really committed to providing services to our students, family, and staff to support learning and wellness during these unprecedented times. We've organized our response in 3 phases. Our first phase goes through our closure period due to the leadership of our board, and we close prior to the governor's announcement, which goes through March 16th through April 3rd. Phase 2 will be from April 6th through April 24th, and phase 3, April 27th through May 15th. In phase 2, we will have expanded instructional packets to include additional courses with integration with special education, arts, advanced academics, and physical education. We will also continue our feeding program for our students and with intentional and purposeful engagement with our teachers and students, and encouraging and challenging our teachers to make sure that we have innovative instructional delivery to reach each and every child. Next slide, please. I think this gives me the most excitement to publicly launch tonight Durham Public Schools Ignite, Limitless Learning Opportunities at Home, Online, and Beyond. I don't know if I'm as excited about this as I am when I get to talk about our strategic plan. We want to make sure that during this time that it's important that we don't allow any of our students, and I mean any of our students, to fall behind due to our closure due to COVID-19. Ignite will allow us to continue supplemental instruction and provide intervention, enrichment, remediation, and acceleration for our students, all of Durham Public School students. Our expanded learning opportunities, as I mentioned, will include the integration of arts, physical science, and advanced academics, as well as additional integration for special education. We will also have special education packets for our students who are on the extended learning content standards. Our official launch will begin next week. Next slide, please. Our parent resource site has curated resources for our families and students K through 12, social and emotional supports for students and parents, as well as exceptional children guidance for our families. It includes an access matrix that contains free access resources for both parents and students by grade level and subject, which will allow our families to make sure that they can intervene, provide any remediation, enrichment, and acceleration for our children. Resources include read aloud books for students at all levels, supplemental instructional supports, as well as many of the resources and websites that are now free due to the COVID-19 closure. This resource also has an FAQ document for parents on how to stay connected during this time, which is especially important now that we are under a stay-at-home order here in Durham. This website is updated regularly and will be linked not only to our Central Durham Public Schools website, but all of our school websites as well. If you could please go to the next slide. In addition to supporting our traditional end of grade and end of course students and subjects, in phase one, we will have expanded courses and opportunities in phase two. In elementary school, we will be including science and social studies. At the middle school, science and social studies, as well as our high school courses such as Math 2. The high school level will be including English 1, 2, 3, and 4, AP English 12, which is the literature and composition course, AP Language, which is our AP 11 course, social studies, world history, physical science, earth environmental, as well as Math 2. So those will be expanded packets, which, as noted before, will have integration with the arts, physical education, and AIG and ESL. We are also going to be working with our teachers to make continued meaningful connections with our students. During this time, we recognize, as we experience social distancing, that one of the things that we miss is that personal connection that our teachers have had daily with our children, and that even many of us have had with our families, now that we are not only having Zoom meetings like this, but I think many families are even having some of those meetings. And so we really want to make sure that we enhance that opportunity with our community specific to those connections. Teachers will be making direct connections to all students prior to April 10th, and then using those connections and relationships to customize the learning for those students. So many of that may be seen in the traditional sense. So making sure that if we need to put packets or information in the mail, that we do so, and picking up the phone in terms of a traditional contact, as well as potentially maybe having even some email contact with our parents and families and students. We also are going to make sure that we have some innovative activities. We want to encourage our teachers to use some of the tools that they use on a daily basis. So maybe even teachers using Facebook Live or Instagram, making sure that if teachers want to record a lesson and post it, so that there's multiple opportunities and modes for our teachers to connect with our students. And more importantly, for our students to make sure that they have the opportunity to continue to access the information. So there will be a balance between what is available in print, what is available digitally, to really make sure that Ignite is a comprehensive opportunity for learning at home, online, and beyond for the children in Durham Public Schools. Next slide, please. And finally, just to let the board and the community know that we are really being very thoughtful around what happens with next steps. We recognize that this time has impacted many of the traditional gatherings that we are so used to, and having conversations with our schools regarding prom, graduation, our field trips that schools have planned, promotion ceremonies. We have worked with our high school principals and have asked them thus far to postpone proms so that as we learn more and potentially there's a lift around gatherings, that those could potentially be held. We have currently confirmed our graduation dates. We have a graduation for our specialty high schools on May 21st, as well as graduation dates in June. So those dates have been confirmed, and we will continue with those ceremonies if we are able, given the lift restrictions that we have in terms of the number of people that can be in a gathering. We will also be working to make sure, as Dr. Monk mentioned, that we have our continuation of food and instructional resources. So the launch of the phase 2 packets that I referenced, that will occur April 6th, 7th, and 8th, and will occur at the over 81 sites that we'll be delivering food. We are now engaging in conversations with our teachers, our principals, and counselors regarding recommendations for grading. We also know that our State Board of Education will be meeting this Friday to talk about grading practices, given that we will be out of school through May 15th right now under the most recent governor's order. And then finally, we will be looking ahead to phase 3. Phase 3 for instructional packets we will continue with the same robust delivery of phase 2 and updating information on our digital website to make sure that we are continuing progressing with our children so that they have the opportunity to move forward during this closure period. Next slide, please. We have had ongoing communication. We have a partnership with our health department here in Durham. Dr. Monk talked extensively about the partnership with DPS Foundation, and we appreciate the work that they are doing to support our community and our families, and really making sure that we continue with ongoing communication on our social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, making sure that we have both internal and external communication, so staff emails as well as parent and community robocalls, and then keeping everything updated on our website. You could see from one of the slides earlier in the presentation, the thousands of hits that we have had on our COVID-19 website, and making sure that we link our instructional website as we move forward to the information on our DPS website. We really believe that will continue to enhance the communication internally and externally, as well as beyond. Next slide, please. Just want to put a reminder to the public, our community, and our board. Mr. Sutterth and the public affairs team has shared this multiple times. Here you can see phone numbers and contact information. If you have any questions that you have regarding the resources that are available during our closure period. Next slide, please. And we just really wanted to share, we were so excited. We received these notes from our children and families earlier this week. And as you can see, the work that we do is really about connecting to our children and connecting to our family and connecting to our community. And that's at the heart of everything that we are doing. These notes really signify how important the service that we have been able to provide in terms of the feeding as well as the instruction. They are just so appreciative, and that's what it's all about. We've never experienced this before. This is truly, it's unprecedented, and we really, we're so grateful that our children had the opportunity and they shared this with us. And we just want to say thank you to our employees, to our staff, for making sure that our kids know and our families know how much we care about them during this time. Next slide, please. This time we'll open it up for questions and discussion. We do have a few other slides that just show, just as a reminder, the members of the task force, but this has been an entire district effort. As we noted in the earlier slides, I mean, hundreds of employees, bus drivers, custodians, maintenance staff, our instructional assistants, teachers, just too many to name that have been committed to our effort during this closure. And we just want to say thank you to our employees, and we want our students and community to know that we are here with you and we care about you, and we're going to be here for you through this entire effort. Dr. Mabenga, I'll turn it back over to you at this time.
Thank you, members of the board. That's pretty much conclude our presentation at this point. I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Lee. Are we still waiting for Chairman Lee? If not, if it's not available, then Vice Chair Bettina Armstead.
I think, Mike, are you working on it?
I think he's having some audio issues.
Okay. Board members, do we have any questions about the presentation?
I have questions, but I thought the public comment might be helpful to get into before we get to this, because I assume a lot of the public comment is about this topic. I didn't know what y'all thought about that idea.
All right, let's go to public comment and then we can do questions about this topic.
Mrs. Sadov?
Prior to the beginning of the board meeting, the board discussed because of the number of comments that we received, 45 of them, discussed that we run through the first minute of each comment so that everyone had a chance to be heard. These public comments will be posted to the Board of Education webpage tomorrow so that people can read them in full. Are we ready? I will give you 1 minute of each comment, and we begin with Catriona Moore from Forest Edge Trail. Is there a possibility of modifying the 2020 to 2021 school calendars to minimize summer break and increase the opportunities for students to get back to learning? The second comment comes from Jessica Friedlander of Lucerne Lane in Durham. First of all, as a high school teacher, thank you for taking the community's well-being into consideration and working so hard to utilize resources to provide for our students on this extended break. I am wondering, with the new closed until May 15th order by Governor Cooper, what is the plan going forward for this extended break? Can we find ways to allow for grading work, but also not penalize students who cannot submit it, such as giving a 60 or 70 as the lowest grade and an incomplete if work just was not or cannot be submitted? Students are worried about their grades staying stagnant and worried about getting credit. My fear is only supplemental work leaves our students ultimately far behind where they need to be, particularly AP students who still have an exam. Thank you. The next comment comes from Patrick Milburn of Martry Road. As a Durham community member, spouse of a DPS employee, and parent of 2 future DPS students, I want to express concern about the importance of DPS employees and partners following all federal, state, and CDC guidelines as they assist with support efforts for DPS families throughout this unprecedented crisis, especially in light of the most recent news that Durham has community spread. I've been extremely concerned with the number of pictures, videos, and messages on social media in which it has been very clear that DPS feeding sites are not observing the recommendations around social distancing in particular. While I'm grateful for the opportunities that DPS and its partners are providing for our most vulnerable families to receive food, we should expect that we are providing these resources with health and safety concerns as the highest priority. It is important for DPS leadership to model and adhere to the necessary protocols in order to flatten the curve and protect our community at large, especially since so many DPS families and employees have been isolating and/or distancing since schools were first closed. In the midst of this health crisis, DPS students and families should trust that all sites are doing whatever it takes, no matter how inconvenient, to ensure their safety and continue to slow down the spread of the virus. As always, thank you for the hard work that you do. And that's slightly over a minute. From Patricia McPhail of Oxford Drive. I'm wondering about the different expectations for teachers working from home across the district. Some schools are allowing teachers to select and document PD and planning, while others are insisting that teachers will only get paid if they attend school site PD, online PD, and ask teachers to submit the same detail in lesson plans going online that we were submitting 2 months ago with differentiation, remediation, assessment, etc. Fully 30% of our students are lacking either a computer, internet access, or both. We have greater participation on Class Dojo, but it is limited. Would love some clarity on all of this. The next comment is anonymous. Why are the custodians still required to work? We're being told that we have to work. Some of us have children at home, and it is dangerous for us to continually put them at risk of exposure. We are also being told that we are essential employees, but we have disinfected every school in Durham County, yet we are still required to be here. We are also being told that we have to disinfect again 2 weeks before school starts back on May 15th. Is there money in the budget to pay the custodians if we weren't required to work? I am speaking on behalf of all custodial staff at Durham Public Schools. We feel like no one cares about our safety or the safety of our children that we go home to every day. We should be out of work and still get paid due to the situation with the COVID-19. We are scared, concerned, and feel like no one is concerned about our well-being. Thank you. The next comment, and by the way, this is comment number 6. Catherine Kizzy from Darby Glen Lane. I am an employee with Durham Public Schools and have been participating in food and supplemental materials distribution at DHA Cornwallis. We are worried that families are not aware of the food and materials distribution. We have seen Wake County on the news, and it seems that their numbers and participation have been steadily increasing due to widespread advertisement. I'm wondering why I haven't seen our programs advertised on the local news affiliates. Will this be happening soon? We have been out 3 days, and most of the families at Cornwallis were not aware until the DPD officer went around to knock on their doors. Please raise community awareness with news reports and more advertisements. Comment number 7 comes from Sarah Moore of Bellevue Street in Hillsborough. There is a lot of conflicting information regarding policies on grading, lessons, and assignments. Teachers from all over DPS are getting various information, and so every teacher I talk to has a different idea of what these policies are. We need very specific, clear policies that come from the superintendent and school board and that are provided in a way that all parents, educators, parents, and students are receiving that information. Comment number 8, Colin Gaffney from Greensboro Road in Chapel Hill. I am a DPS employee. For families not connected via phone or internet, what is the district doing to help schools and teachers contact students and their families via mail? Can teachers be reimbursed for mail sent to students and families not connected? Thank you in advance for your consideration. The next comment is from Samuel Mbaye from Chalk Level Road, and it is simply good. Public comment number 10 is from Daniel Keegan of Berkeley Street in Durham. Thank you, board members, for your service and leadership. Recently, you have taken extraordinary actions to address extraordinary challenges. Your decisive and appropriate response to COVID-19 demonstrates your strong commitment to DPS students, families, and staff. I am encouraged and trust your leadership. At the appropriate time, we will begin to move from disaster response mode to thoughtful planning for how we will return to normal operations. As a DPS educator and parent, I look forward to getting back to school as soon as possible. I also recognize that these extraordinary measures, as necessary and important as they have been, have had a disproportionate impact on our student body. We know that for our most vulnerable students, this time out of school has been and will continue to be devastating, even with district work packets, provided meals, and other measures. With that understanding, the question then becomes, how will DPS move forward equitably after this danger has passed? How will the district work to make sure that the students most impacted by school closures are provided the necessary and vital opportunities to leap forward? The district must act with measures that are at least as extraordinary as school closure to ensure that students most impacted by this crisis have equitable opportunities for success. And we have run over time. Comment number 11 comes from Rob Morris of Gray Avenue. What are you doing to provide remote online curriculum to elementary aged students? Expecting parents to both work from home and homeschool is unrealistic. From LaRonda Leslie, comment number 12 from Hebron Road in Durham. Please consider the classified employees of DPS. They are consistent in their willingness to aid in improving all aspects of student success. Don't bypass them as you consider next year's budget. Thank you for your time. Comment number 13 from Deborah McKnight of McKnight's Cove in Pittsburgh. My EC students who are not motivated to do work when it's not required are getting further and further behind. I wonder what the requirements will be when we begin true virtual learning on April 6th. Comment 14 from Kate Mester of Guthrie Avenue. What is the district's plan to continue paying classified employees, teachers' aides, tech aides, etc., who are essential but cannot do their work in our buildings for the remainder of school closing? Number 15 from Kayla Miles of Willowdale Drive in Durham. Will still be receiving credits for the second semester, fourth quarter? That's a question. Comment 16 from Stephen Artley of Hallmark Road. Please figure out a way to continue to fully pay all classified staff through this unforeseen forced shutdown. Classified personnel support teachers, students, administrators, and parents day in and day out, year after year, so all of you can do your jobs. They support you, and now it is your time to support them. Thank you and stay safe. Comment 17 from Gabrielle Tiffin of Planters Court. Please begin to allow schools to send devices home for students who need access to them. Comment 18 from Ariel Austin of Clarendon Street. Our principal has shared that computers cannot be shared out with students in need. I am very concerned about this. We have computers that can be distributed, and if we want to be helping families, why wouldn't we share these resources? Comment 19 from Kayla Klima of Turmeric Lane. I believe that refusing to get devices to students and families who do not have them is inequitable and doing a great disservice to the families of Durham. If the surrounding school districts can get laptops, iPads, and other devices to those students who are without, why can't DPS? If it is because you are afraid they won't come back and you will lose money, if that's the case, then for shame. Our students are missing out on months of learning because the district refuses to let teachers and schools give devices that are sitting unused in classrooms to students. Comment number 20 from Kimberly Wallace of Turning Leaf Lane. From what I understand, some of the therapists with the community agencies that provide in-school therapeutic services for our students are being laid off. This is definitely a time where these services are needed to continue for our students. How is DPS continuing to work with the agencies during this time? The next comment, 21, is from Cheryl Novolinsky of Orchard Oriole Lane. and it's a long one, so it will have to be cut off. I am a teaching assistant in exceptional children and a DAE member. I work specifically with high school kids with autism. These kids range in age from 14 to 22. A lot of people don't have a clue as to what we do. This includes other educators and administrators. And let me fill you in. In order to do my job, I need to be certified in special holds and restraints. This is referred to as CPI training and is a nonviolent means to restrain a person having a behavior in which they could harm themselves or others. I need to be able to read a student to know when they are getting ready to blow. We work as a team to keep the other students and each other safe. It's a slippery and sometimes dangerous slope. I am also certified to give medications to those students who require it. We have some that need it every day and some who only need it when they get upset. I administer the medicine and keep records of it. I check and double check labels. I make notes when students refuse the medication. I change diapers. Yep, I work with kids and adults who are not toilet trained, so I am trained to help them out. Our teachers are busy with planning, updating records, working with IEPs, helping with behaviors, and finding resources for our students and their families. So we ECIAs teach the kids. I'm going to skip to the end of this just to get her point across. I love what I do, but I feel that we need to be compensated for our trainings and certifications. We deserve a livable wage. This is a hard job, and keeping dedicated, caring staff on the job is very important. We lose We lose many great people due to the lack of compensation for the amount of stress and work that we put in. The next comment is comment number 22 from Paula Januzzi Godfrey. I am the teaching and learning coach at Merrickmore Elementary School. I would first like to thank the DPS staff and all DPS employees for all of the time and effort that they have been putting into taking care of DPS students during this unexpected crisis. I want to point out some concerns, but I do not want anyone to think that I am not noticing all of the hard work that is currently happening behind and on the scene. Since these are unprecedented times, I'm hoping that you will be open to suggestions as we are all continue to learn together and navigate this pandemic. My concern is as it always has been. We are doing good things for many, but it is benefiting the families who already have access to resources to do good things for themselves. We are missing the target for our most vulnerable families and students. I referred to Merrickmore as an invisible school during my school board campaign recently. Merrickmore and other schools who have high poverty demographics are once again somewhat invisible. It is unacceptable now more than ever. I know that lunches are being offered at well thought out sites. However, from what I have seen firsthand, they are not getting into the hands of students. Our staff and myself have been reaching out to our families daily, and many of them are not yet aware of the lunch or weekend meals opportunities. DPS social media presence is great for those who use that as a resource, but it is not on the top of the list for many families, especially those who are living in poverty. I am jumping to the end. Some rules may need to be bent or molded to fit a pandemic. These are not normal times. My time to speak now is limited, but I am more than happy to share ideas with you at a different time. Please make it soon. Every day is critical if you don't have food in your home. And a reminder that these comments will be posted in full to the DPS website. The next one is comment number 23 from Sarah Jameson. I am the of Westerfield Road in Wake Forest. I am the AIG facilitator at Neal Middle School and a member of DAE. Thank you for the opportunity to offer comments on the important issues facing our district at this unprecedented time. I would like to specifically address the need for finding a clear balance between work from home expectations for staff and the needs of our own families during the COVID-19 school closure. All teachers and staff want to support our students through this time to the absolute best of our ability. That being said, it is also imperative to recognize that we have families as well. Our families include children of all ages who are also now at home for an indefinite period of time. It is incredibly difficult to work from home productively for 7 to 8 hours a day while also meeting the physical, emotional, and academic needs of our own children. The current circumstances provide challenges for all staff, but are especially burdensome for single parents, parents whose partners are still required to work outside of the home, as well as the parents of children with special needs. Staff members that are caring for older family members or family members who are sick also face great difficulty in trying to fulfill both their work obligations and their family responsibilities. These factors must be taken into account when defining and clarifying expectations surrounding working from home. The next comment is Jen Painter, Beechwood Drive, Carborough, and this is a long one. I am an ESL teacher at Jordan High School and a member of the Durham Association of Educators. I first want to thank the board members and all DPS administrators and employees for working so hard to care for our students while on short timelines and under continually shifting circumstances. I also appreciate that this evening you are planning for the future while juggling all the present unknowns. I am very proud of the ESL program at my school. When I started at Jordan in 2006, we had 2 full-time ESL positions and a little over 100 ESL students. We have grown to 4 full-time teachers and 1 half-time teacher, and at our high point this year, we were serving around 275 emergent bilingual students. We grew quickly this summer with a large number of newcomer arrivals, an increase which was experienced at schools around the district. These students, who sometimes arrive with interrupted formal education, can be very successful if they receive intensive English instruction, sheltered content instruction, and mental health and counseling services that they can access in their first language. We do our best, but we could do more to support these students and the mainstream teachers who teach them with more resources and staff. Our school also has a large group of students who are bilingual, but whose families who prefer to communicate in Spanish. We need more resources to serve them, especially as in this moment we are seeing that clear communication with all of our DPS families is vital to sustaining, protecting, and growing our school community. I'm going to cut that short there. The next comment comes from Deborah Bailey of Cheek Road in Durham. This is comment number 25. Good evening. My name is Deborah Bailey, a DPS custodian, the director of the Educational Support Professionals for the Durham Association of Educators, and a classified SSAC member. The term "in this together" is the theme of this current COVID-19 pandemic. The coronavirus does not discriminate. The Surgeon General has advised everyone to be cautious, but not afraid of coronavirus. Governor Roy Cooper has declared a state of emergency, and Durham Mayor Steve Schewel yesterday issued a stay-at-home order for everyone with the exception of essential personnel. What is the definition of essential? Absolutely necessary. Is it absolutely necessary for our custodial staff to jeopardize their health and safety to deep clean our facilities during this pandemic? We have employees who are classified as high risk, being over 60 years of age with medical conditions. People are stressed because they feel their jobs are in jeopardy if they do not come to work. We are at the bottom end of the pay scale, with the majority of us living paycheck to paycheck and working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Many of us are stressed out, not knowing what's happening next, fearing that if the coronavirus doesn't kill you, stress will. Life is such a great teacher that when you don't learn a lesson, it will repeat it. Dare to reach into the darkness to pull someone into the light. There are recommendations for promoting and developing virtual professional development training opportunities for staff, and say that no DPS employee should have to choose between their health and safety and their paycheck. The full comment will be on the website at a later date. The next comment is comment number 26 from Ellen Holmes of Edgewood Drive. I am a Spanish teacher and Destino Success, a Latinx-based club advisor at Riverside High School. I'm also a member of the DAE. I'm urging the board to do everything in their power to ensure that ESL students are properly served, bilingual families are supported correctly, interpretation is readily and promptly available, and the Multilingual Resource Center is staffed to meet the needs of our ever-growing multilingual population in Durham Public Schools. This means we need you to approve a budget that supports and serves our large multilingual population. I would like to give you all a snapshot of what it is currently like for our students and their families who are underserved. I personally spend half of my day every school day and beyond answering student and parent questions for students who are not in my classes. They reach out to me because they know that I speak Spanish and I will help them, even though this is in addition to my regular duties. The support I provide ranges from doing homework, going over notes to ensure a student understood the lesson, access to Power School and bus information, answering general school questions, assisting with food access, reaching out to other teachers on the parents' behalf with questions, calling home for other teachers to share information about their students, communicating with them in emergency situations, keeping them updated with events within Riverside and the district, assisting with scheduling, advice, and more. I am skipping ahead because we've reached the time. There are not enough of us to meet the urgent needs of all of our multilingual students. DPS cannot continue to underserve these students and their families. The next comment is from Ann Von Hole, or Holly, of Belfair Way in Chapel Hill. All 6 school districts adjacent to Durham County, Wake, Chatham, Orange, Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Person, and Granville, have noted on their websites, social media, that they are planning or will start at-home remote distance learning. Similar to these counties that are preparing and starting remote learning, when will the Durham County School District resume instruction via remote learning? As of March 26th, I cannot find this information for Durham County. During this public health crisis, how will children in Durham Public Schools keep up with their peers in these surrounding counties? As a parent of children in Durham Public Schools, I thank the Board of Education of the Durham School District for their attention to this issue and their work during this crisis. Comment 28 comes from Robin Kirk of Club Boulevard. Hi all, and thank you for the hard work that you have been doing during this difficult time. I'm wondering if you can address how you are considering moving forward as far as ending the school year as scheduled, or moving whether you will move this year's instruction into the summer. Thanks. The next comment is from Nicholas Graber Grace of Glendale Avenue. And this will have to be cut short. A virtual greeting to each member of the board. I have a child at E.K. Poe Elementary, and I teach social studies at Hillside High School. We're in a unique and unprecedented moment. None of us anticipated this pandemic or the effect it will have on our schools, our community, and our state. As a civics and economics teacher, I've met electronically with students each day this week. My students are using the context of COVID-19 to evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of our federal system as counties, states, and the national government respond in inconsistent and divergent ways. We are studying economic indicators in real time and by watching how Congress and the Federal Reserve work to stimulate a weak economy. As we rise to meet this unprecedented moment, we must remain rooted in our core values. Our decisions must be guided by our commitment to democratic decision-making, to equity, and to a deep respect for our staff, our students, and our community. Yes, we should engage students electronically as best we can. Yes, we must shift and adjust how we operate. No one is better at doing that than educators, but we also have to acknowledge that some things we usually require just aren't that important right now. There is more than a minute left. He says that students that are worried about course credit should be assured they will be held harmless, that staff worried about paid checks and leave time must be assured that no educator will be charged leave time as a result of COVID-19, and advocates for expanding EC and ESL funding and the need for all DPS staff to earn a $15 an hour living wage. The next comment is lengthy. It is comment number 30 from Earl Williams of Chandelier Drive. I'm a special education teacher and DAE member. I've been teaching various self-contained classes for about 20 years. The last 15 years, I've worked for DPS in middle and high school settings. For the last few years, I've been the lead or co-lead of our professional learning community for IDE, intellectually disabled, and AU, autistic teachers. The work we as low incidence teachers actually do, we are responsible for the students from the minute they get off the bus, usually 15 minutes before school starts, until they board the bus to go home, which can be 15 to 30 minutes after school is let out. These students have to be supervised at all times. This means that unlike other teachers, we do not get a planning period. We do not get a planning period or a lunch. This includes staff as well. Along with... I don't have an answer. Apologies for Siri's interruption there. Along with having to put in more hours than our regular education peers, we are required to teach all the core subjects, as well as functional academics, social skills instruction, and transition skills. Students in self-contained classes range in ability level from those who use assistive technology, and I need to cut that short because we're well past a minute. Looking ahead, he identifies people who have left the profession due to burnout, and recommends addressing this with creating a separate pay scale for special education teachers. Comment number 31 is from Shantaya Parker of Ridgeway Avenue. Why are y'all doing a stay-at-home requirement if people still going to come out and continue to spread the virus? How is that going to solve everything? Comment 32 is from Michelle Burton of Stonefence Court. I'm the president of the Durham Association of Educators. I'm speaking in regards to the DPS budget, and I'm asking that all classified staff receive a $15 minimum wage. This really needs to be in the budget for next year. As we can see during this COVID-19 crisis, we could not run this school system without our classified workers. They have met the call of duty by showing up, driving the school buses, preparing food for our students, delivering food for our students, sanitizing our buildings, maintaining our buildings, etc. We must fight for them. We must figure out a way that we can give all classified staff a minimum of $15 an hour. They more than deserve it, and we must say this to our county commissioners and get them to understand why paying them $15 is and should be a priority. Let's face it, our classified folks are risking their health and safety to make sure our schools are safe and our students have food to eat. The least we can do is to fight for them and ask our county commissioners to give them a decent standard of living. So I ask that we keep the $15 minimum wage in the budget for classified staff. Thank you. The next comment, comment number 33, is from Anka Stefan of Shrewsbury Street. I am a Durham Association of Educators Union member, a DPI parent, and a high school English teacher at the School for Creative Studies. First, I want to thank you for finding creative ways to hold these meetings, and especially for this section of public comment. It feels particularly important to connect and hold space for the various ways people are processing and reacting to this difficult and scary time. I'd like to speak on the specific impact of this global pandemic on classified staff, particularly communicating custodial staff concerns for workplace safety and appropriate pay and leave. There's a team of 6 custodians who take care of the building where I teach. 2 of them are full-time, the others are considered part-time. While faculty were locked out of the building starting this past Friday, that team continued to come in to work so they can sanitize the building and keep the rest of us safe. What that means is that our custodial staff are on the front lines of battling this unusually dangerous enemy while all of us are trying to adapt to a culturally and economically destabilizing crisis. We understand that the district is doing its best to make sure all our folks get paid. We also know that asking folks to report to Brogden or Riverside when those are not their assigned work sites only further exacerbates the negative impact of this crisis on our colleagues for the following reasons. And I have to cut this short, so the reasons are asking custodial staff to report to different sites or exposes them to further health risk, not supplying them with hazard gear like masks or gloves, or not adding hazard pay. More than half of the workers at her school are part-time, therefore navigating the crisis without health insurance coverage, and asking them to abandon projects in their schools and shuffling them to other locations feels like a failure to acknowledge the expertise they hold. Comment number 34 comes from Micah Tweetmeyer, excuse me, of Carolina Avenue. I am a biology teacher at Riverside, a DAE member, and the 2019 DPS Teacher of the Year. My partner is also a DPS educator. During this stressful, uncertain time, DPS needs to reassure its staff, all of its staff, that they will remain employed and will have jobs to return to when this crisis ends. Educators have shown that they are committed to their students and to the community, even when we cannot be in our school buildings. In the coming months, and when we are back in school, Durham will need its educators more than ever to get our community back on track and move forward. Durham needs to lead by example, as we usually do, ensuring job security for its educators and staff. Please make this commitment to Durham's educators and students. Comment 35 is from Patricia McPhail of Oxford Drive. My name is Morgan McPhail. I teach 5th grade at Hope Valley Elementary. Concerns shared with me to be shared with you are as followed. 1, teachers throughout the district are asking for clarity and consistency as what is expected when working from home. Some teachers have been asked to fill out the district form. Others have a school form. For example, our school has been asked to fill out our HVE lesson plan template and to be sure we include assessments, level of mastery, and access for all. This last is a bit problematic given the 30% of students who do not have the available technology. We've also been told that unless we complete school-created PDs set up on Google Drive, we will not get paid for work from home hours, whereas teachers at other schools are being allowed to select from an array of PD courses. So therefore, what forms of PD outside of those created by individual schools will count towards work from home hours? For teachers planning online instruction, what precisely are teachers expected to be teaching? The spiral review, new content aligned to pacing guide, what our teachers were told. Are we still preparing students to take EOGs and EOCs? How many hours per day of online instruction is expected? Remaining questions, to summarize, what about teachers who are caring for ill family members or if they're themselves ill? Please clarify what will be expected in summative evaluations. And because of the confusion, I've just been putting in leave days as I have quite a bit accumulated for one of the teachers who have no leave days left. Comment number 36 from Tolu Fashoro of Birch Avenue, I believe. Good evening to the board, and thank you all for continuing your hard work through this crisis. I'm in my 2nd year working as an ESL teacher in DPS. It's clear that the newcomer population in Durham is growing and shows little sign of slowing down. As this community grows, we need the resources to support them. I've experienced a number of issues. Not all can be solved at the school board level, but some can. This year, when our one EC interpreter split between multiple schools was on maternity leave, we found that the language translation line had run out of money by January. How can that be? Funding hasn't kept pace with the need. Since no one was on hand to interpret for Spanish-speaking families in these meetings, I was pulled in to interpret at times. Hard to refuse, even if not totally appropriate. Having a student load of 2 grade levels, over 100 students, and classes of 25 and more is not conducive to effective language learning for newcomers. These students come in with some specific types of trauma brought on by their journey, perhaps fleeing violence or at least instability, sometimes experiencing violence on the journey or at the border to reach instability in a new home. They need more social emotional support. Money is needed for more interpreters, more translation services, more teachers, more bilingual counselors, and social workers. Excuse me a moment. I made it through 36 of these without getting some water, and of course I choked on the water. Comment number 37 comes from Gloria Howard of Guest Road. We are being asked to go to numerous schools to clean. I'm worried about working with people I don't know that good. Comment 38 from Armani Jones Elliott of Penrith Drive. It is kind of scary and honestly a major setback in my plans and goals in the future. But I do understand the reasoning, and I feel like it is essential to stop the spread. I feel like people still have the freedom to go out and get everything that they may need. Comment number 39 is from Joseph Burgess from Spruce Knob Court. I am a custodian for Durham Public Schools. Why isn't safety for us being valued? Everyone is asking why we are still in crossfire. We are being told that we can go home and just use our leave, which a lot of us don't have over a month or more. I was wondering if the governor told us that government workers will make sure we get paid, then why keep subjecting us to this deadly disease? Comment 40 from Jennifer Campbell of Summer Breeze Drive. What is Durham Public Schools doing to reassure that the mental health agencies who are serving our DPS students will still have consistent access to these services? It is during these times that the community should come together and take a stand and make sure that all students have access to all services. Today, Nicole Rice, a Carolina outreach therapist, was laid off from her job. As a result, about 30 Jordan High School students and many other countless students, my 9-year-old son included, will now have to request a new therapist. I was told that we could request a new therapist through Carolina Outreach and that the new services would include using telehealth, a virtual conference. The issue is that for about a year, my son has built a relationship with Nicole and she has helped him through all of his anxieties. Our quarantine life at home has been smoother because she has reached out to us and provided phone conferences to help support my son. In the midst of all of the uncertainties that this pandemic has caused, my son now has to add this to his overwhelming new normal. In addition, the other 30 or more Jordan High School freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors will have to add this to their overwhelming new normal. However, not all families have access to telehealth because that requires internet services or some type of technology device. I'm not sure, I'm skipping to the end. I'm not sure if this is something that student support has taken into consideration, but this is a service that is greatly needed in our community where consistency has been interrupted. The next comment is from Brian Calloway, and it is comment number 41, and it will have to be cut short. Good evening, board and the community watching at home. Even though business is not usual these days, there are still budgets to pass. With much uncertainty in the moment, I make 2 very specific budget requests to you. For some of you, this will be your last budget vote, and Ms. Fort Brown, I want to thank you for your years of service to this community. My first request is that the Board of Education create an open door, fully public, and completely transparent community-led panel that systematically reviews all DPS contracts over $10,000 and all salaried positions making over $90,000. It is important that panel is not led by DPS officials or by any employee organizations, but is led by and open to the community. Like nearly all of us at home, DPS needs to make some tough decisions, and I do not trust this board, this administration, and surely not the Durham Association of Educators to have a sober approach to this exercise. Cuts will need to come because we know tax revenues will be hit hard by this crisis. As a former employee, I am astutely aware that there are fluffy and useless expenditures across DPS that have persisted for years. And that's the 1 minute. The second request is that the board not ask for millions more in capital funding. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Calloway submitted and I didn't see this until the end. Mr. Calloway submitted a 1 minute version, and I feel like I should provide that. So I'm going to start that. My apologies. My first request is that the Board of Education create an open door, fully public, and community-led panel that systematically reviews all DPS contracts over $10,000 and all salaried positions making over $90,000. Cuts will need to come because we know tax revenues will be hit hard by this crisis. And let me remind you, you represent the people of Durham County. You do not represent a special interest group. You do not represent this institution. You represent the people of Durham County who have elected you. If you are not up to that task, the voters will remove you, and there's nothing your friends in red will be able to do about that. My second request is that you refrain from the antics that Ms. Natalie Beyer displayed at the last budget cycle, where she filibustered for millions more in local capital funding. Requesting annual local capital funding for capital assets rather than using bonds is a taxation inequity that puts disproportional tax burden on today's residents. Ms. Beyer should be ashamed of herself for advocating such a known taxation inequity. Good governance is the only way we will get through this crisis, and I look forward to when this board will consist of true champions and not just chant-filled cheerleaders. Comment number 42 comes from Nina Pandy of Duke Street. Good evening. I teach at Neal Middle School and am a member of the Durham Association of Educators. As we engage with students throughout the school closure due to COVID-19, I would like us to be more thoughtful and consider what students are experiencing right now. In addition to feeling firsthand the fear and uncertainty of this moment, many children and young adults are experiencing an additional layer of emotional upheaval from seeing adults in their lives going through hardships and such as job loss and economic insecurity, or losing forms of support they can normally rely on. At a time like this, we as educators must be attentive to students' emotional well-being and be realistic about the limits of what online or packet-based instruction can accomplish for our students. Many students may not be ready or able to focus on academics, yet can benefit immensely from having a teacher or staff person they know serving as an emotional anchor as they navigate this difficult time. I hope that the school board and district leadership can provide guidance and resources to help our schools and staff develop strategies to collectively support our students' emotional health and safety. In addition, I hope that this work can be recognized as even more indispensable than continuing to engage students with our academic curriculum at this time. We have 3 comments remaining. Comment 43 comes from Turquoise Lejeune Parker of Bluffside Court. We've all been suddenly thrust into a space that is new to us all. We are all hopefully offering continual grace and love to each other even more than in this moment. Fully funded public schools is our shared dream, vision, and goal. We want to come on the other side of this pandemic even stronger than we were before. We want our public school workers to want to remain public school workers, and we want to gain even more public school workers on the other side of this. The key to doing that is how we take care of or not take care of folks during this pandemic. We've all moved into a position that some of us have never been in, weren't prepared for, or had little time to prepare for. There are principals with wildly different outlooks on what working from home looks like. Some of those principles are frankly making our most valued public school workers want to leave. We have got to get all of our leadership to understand that educators are caretakers as well. This pandemic is difficult on us all in very different ways. There's urgency in our world right now, and our public school workers have got to be treated better than this. I know that all of our sitting board members and senior leadership agree that our objective is not to police the every move of our workers. Our school employees simply cannot run any faster, sleep any less, and they will never be able to serve 2 and 3 and 4 groups of people at one time. We will not be able to compensate for what they are about to lose if we don't act now to fix the work from home situation. Our second to last comment is from Kyla Williams of Forge Road. I think this is a good idea for the future, but I feel as if the curfew should be later than 6, more around 9. We'll take that up with the mayor. And finally, from Paloma, last name not listed. What is going to happen to our seniors? They are in a critical point right now and are nervous of graduation. Some students already have summer classes to start college and are unaware if they could complete them. Please provide us with clear information about what is going to happen to them. And the final comment is from me. I'm going to drink some water now.
Thank you, Chip. I just want to make sure that you guys can hear me okay now. Okay, good. I appreciate that, and thank you, Bettina, for taking care of that. I got kicked out for some reason. My audio did not sync back up. What I was trying to say when I was my audio was not coming through was I wanted to give an opportunity for the board to speak about the superintendent's update that included the update on the response that we had. Wanted to give an opportunity if anybody wanted to chime in. I think, let's see, the next item on our agenda is the agenda review and approval, but I'll leave this moment, just a short moment here, if anybody wanted to chime in on that, or we can save the comments until later. So if Steve, I saw you come off of mute.
I know I have a number of questions, and I suspect other board members might too. So I'm not sure that this is going to be brief. So I don't know where we want to put it on the agenda to give it enough time. This is, to my mind, the most important thing for us to address, and I want to make sure we do it thoroughly and well.
Okay. Well, did we do agenda review and approval? No, we went straight to public comment. Okay, so let's do this. We'll do the agenda review and approval. I would suggest right before the budget. I would suggest right before the budget conversation, maybe we kind of discuss the questions that we might have, and then we do the budget comment. How do you guys feel about that? So this is, let's do this. We're at agenda review and approval. I will make an adjustment to say discussion on the superintendent's update conversation. We'll add that right before the proposed budget in our agenda as a precursor to A. So are there any other adjustments? Okay, so the way we're going to vote is we'll just do a show of hands, and I'll read out who's voting, so everyone doesn't have to come off, and then there's a delay and so forth. So, but I will need a motion. I will need a motion though in a second.
I'm happy to make second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded. Moved by Mr. Kason and seconded by Mr. Unruh, that we amend the agenda to add a superintendent's update discussion. If there's no further discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. It passes unanimously. With the unanimous vote, there is no opposed. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Board of Education minutes, their approval for February 27th, 2020.
I would move approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Byer, seconded by Ms. Umstead. Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously, 7-0. Okay, so we did public comment. Thank you, Chip, for that. Please get refreshed, rehydrated. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, the consent items. On our consent agenda, we have policies 4000B policies, second reading. We discussed this in the work session. We have design contract for Parkwood Elementary mobile classroom project, lottery application for Little River Elementary School roof replacement project, purchase of 1.75 acres of real property located at 904 and 840 Scott King Road, adjoining Elementary School C property, and then summer learning. Is there any discussion on either one of these consent agenda items? Information is in your packet and you had opportunity to review. Okay.
What's the question on the summer learning, Mike? Are we just going to pass that and then modify it in the future if needed? Is that the thinking of staff?
Dr. Hardy, I see you're shaking as an affirmative. I think that's correct. We're going to pass it, and then depending on what happens on with if we're back in school or not, we'll have to adjust it in a later meeting.
Agreed.
Okay.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so that's the consent items.
I would move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Ms. Byer, seconded by Mr. Unruh, I believe. That was Mr. Unruh. Oh, it was Matt, by Mr. Sears. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Passes unanimously. And moving forward. Okay, operational services. We actually decided we'll have, we adjusted our agenda to add the discussion surrounding the superintendent's update, which had our DPS response to COVID-19. Things moving forward. I wanted to give the board an opportunity to speak here, ask questions. We have all of our administration on and ready for the questions. Mr. Unruh, you mentioned you had questions. I will go across the board after. I'll start asking other board members after you speak. Please proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first, just thank you to the administration for the presentation and for the extensive work. It's been impressive and has affected a lot of families in a positive way. So thank you for all that. I have questions, but I don't want these questions to minimize at all the work that's had to be done over the last couple of weeks at every level. So thank you for that. So first for the classified employees, we say that we're doing everything we can to keep everybody working. Do we have a ballpark on what percentage of classified employees we're able to keep employed? Are we in fact keeping 100% of our classified employees working, at least those who want to work?
I'm going to let, excuse me, I'm going to let Dr. Monk respond to that as well. Ms. Atkins can jump in as well.
So from the operations side, we have been keeping a track on our attendance. And our maintenance tech, we are averaging about 87%, which is close to what a normal week may look like as far as absenteeism go. We are much further down. We dropped about 29% in our school nutrition, so we're down to about 66% staff. Custodial, we're down to 58% staff, and in our bus drivers, we're down to about 75% staff. But those who are feeling well and can come to work, when they do, we find work for them to do.
So you're saying when you say that percentage, that the other people are not asking to come into work or are taking normal sick leave, they're just doing something else. But people who are asking to come into work, we're finding work for. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Could you, while you're still live here, could you speak about the safety concerns for custodians?
Certainly, I would venture to say that absent a pandemic, they are always on the front line for us in maintaining and making sure that our facilities are clean. Even before we had this pandemic plan specifically for COVID-19, we always had a pandemic flu plan, which basically goes in effect from about October to April, where we're cleaning more often and disinfecting more often than we would normally do to keep down on the spread of the flu virus. So we, as you may recall earlier, whenever I was doing the presentation, I talked about the need for us to get donations for sanitizer and latex gloves and things like that, because we do want to make sure that we do not run out of those essential PPEs so that our custodians and food service and bus driver personnel can continue to work and feed children and keep our facilities where we need them to be, so that whenever students do return, they return to a healthy environment.
Thank you. And so if I'm a custodian going into a school, what are we doing are we taking extra precautions to make sure that folks are safe in the context of the pandemic?
Yeah, so they would be exercising social distancing in the schools as well. We met with principals on last week or this week. Is starting to blur together at this point. But we went through that our buildings are closed to the public, as well as other staff that are non-essential, which gives custodians basically whole corridors and hallways that they can operate out of. If there is someone that does not have PPE, it doesn't have the glove, they should be able to get that from their lead custodian or custodian supervisors. And if that's not the case, we'll definitely make sure that our director of custodial services and our executive director of facility services gets those materials to them.
And then Ms. Atkins, could you clarify some of the leave policy that was on your slide
Sure. So right now, if an employee feels that they are needing to stay home, a good example is if they're in a high risk group, that would classify under a quarantine or self quarantine, and we are being as flexible. We will be as flexible as possible in the interpretation of that legislation. So, for example, if someone is asthmatic and they are a custodian and they're not feeling comfortable with coming to work because of their unique need, then they would be able to utilize that emergency sick leave, just as an example. Right now, we're operating under current state and federal guidance. As you all know, things change almost daily. And so if we get further guidance from the state regarding classified pay, we will certainly comply as we have always done.
Ms. Atkins, can you give a little bit more details about the FMLA? Are they going to get paid 100% or probably 80%?
That's a good question. So with the FMLA, the federal FMLA expansion, it is 2/3 pay for up to 12 weeks. If an employee, that's mostly related to childcare. And so if an employee is not able to find childcare, or their childcare center is closed, it is at 2/3 pay. Similarly, with the emergency sick leave legislation, if an employee is sick themselves or if they're quarantining for themselves because they're in a high risk group, they would get 100% of pay for their sick leave. However, under the legislation, if they're caring for a family member or if they're utilizing the emergency sick leave because of childcare issues, that would be at 2/3 pay. And that is the current legislation as it stands right now.
Thank you. And then I'm not sure, Dr. Mubang, I'm not sure who would answer this, but the concern has been raised about making sure that everybody is guaranteed a job as we go through this and then going into the fall. Can we speak to that issue?
Thank you, Mr. Andover, for that particular question or concern. I think that has been my expectation from the beginning. When we started this pandemic, I really instructed my staff to make sure that everybody's getting paid. And the only way we get paid at that point was everybody have to work. So that's what I was able to guarantee all our staff, including all classified employees. We're gonna be as creative as possible to make sure that everybody get paid. That's what we're doing. So moving forward, we don't know yet what the state is gonna do with the budget. In a few minutes, we're gonna discuss about local budget as well. So our intent is pretty much to make sure that everybody's employed. Those of us that's been around during the recession in 2008, we have seen that a lot of districts, they were able to ignite their RIF policy. That's not what we're intending to do. At this point, we hope that the revenue is going to be there at the county level, as well at the state level, that everybody will be guaranteed their employment.
Thank you. And then Dr. Hardy, on the academic plan, we talk about having more courses available. So what's the expectation for a teacher? Let's just choose an English 2 teacher. What's our expectation for what they're doing?
During phase 2, we would like our teachers to reach out to each student. So we're asking, so if you think about a traditional English 2 teacher, for example, at Riverside, they would have 3 classes between 25 and 30 students potentially. So we would like for them to contact each of those students. Mr. Friedman's office is available, as well as other staff in the school. If we do have some students with parents that speak another language, we will use our liaisons to help make sure that we are able to make contact with that. Our specialists, which are part of the curriculum and instruction department, have put together the packets for English 2. So those packets have already been delivered and then we'll have another packet that will be delivered April 6th. So we want the teacher to reach out to the students, check in on them, see how they're doing, see if they have any needs or they can provide support. And then we're asking that all of our principals work with to make sure that there are at least some office hours during the day where families can contact students. And so we're asking for a couple of hours for you to make sure that teachers are available in specific content areas to reach out. And then if those times do not necessarily work for that particular family, we also have on the slide, I think it was the second to last slide, if you remember the general number where parents can also call, and we'll make sure that we connect them. And then we also want our teachers to work with our other colleagues and our principals. They are having some PLC meetings as well as participating in professional development. So some of the general work that our teachers will be doing.
And if I'm a teacher of a class that is not in the set of courses, let's say I'm a middle school Spanish teacher, what's the expectation?
The expectation is very similar, and that teacher may be working with our world language specialist. I mean, we're working with our CTE folks to make sure that where we can provide some supplemental. So for example, there, I think arts is a good example. In the packets, we have some arts activities that students can do. And Mr. Tucker has worked with his lead art teachers to make sure by grade band, there's some activities that students can do. We want those teachers to also contact students and to make sure that they are doing well. We want to make sure that students do have the opportunity, if there were missed assignments during the time that we were in school, that they have support in completing any of those assignments and any support that they need, and that they're connecting. Many of our teachers, as you know, Mr. Unruh, are extremely innovative. And so they are already posting video, interacting with students on Instagram. We really want to make sure that our teachers have the opportunity to do that. At the same time, we want to acknowledge the fact that we don't want students to feel held back. So that's why those digital resources that are available for students and families to complement any print resources. And then we're more than happy to support teachers in making sure if they do have print resources, that those resources are also available to our students and families.
Okay, thank you. I think I have other questions, but I want to yield time to my colleagues. So thank you all very much.
Okay, Minnie.
Thank you. It appears, based on the overwhelming response that we got in public comment, that either our messaging is inconsistent or unclear about salary, about whether or not I need to come to work, whether I'm going to be still employed, whether I'm going to get paid. I think we need to have a really clear, concise, and consistent message that goes out to staff. When we let principals and supervisors decide who should come and who doesn't need to come, then that gets, and you're doing this at Hope Valley and I'm doing this over here at Pearson Town, it gets confusing for people. I think we need to have consistent message, and I'd like that to come from the top. And I'd like a really consistent, clear message to come from the top that says, this is what Durham Public Schools is doing. If you're a classified person, this is what you're doing. If you're this, okay, if you're out on FMLA, I mean, what I'm hearing around, see, if I would just always say, I've got to, I'm in a category that is vulnerable, so I can get my 100% pay. I mean, because who's checking? This is the pandemic, so I don't know if it doesn't. It's too crazy for me to wrap my head around. And Nakia, what I want to know is, you've got kids that are out of school, that are home with parents. And I know this is something we've never experienced before, but we need to send a schedule like the kids have they've been in school for 7 months. So they've been going by a schedule. And we can send that schedule home and say, parents, we know this is a difficult time, but this is what your child needs to be doing starting at 8 o'clock on to 3. This is what needs to happen. That at 9 o'clock, they need to be having to sit them down with their math packet. At 10 o'clock, they need to be doing this so that there's some structure in their house. Otherwise, I would think the kids would just be doing whatever, watching television all day. So I think we need to help parents with that, help them with that. And then for those older kids, they already know what they should be doing. They're just messing around. So I think we need to have some scheduling for them as well. If I'm an English 2 teacher, Steve, I think I know what time I teach English 2 to my class. I need to have those kids gathered, whether it's on Zoom or however we're doing it, tell them this is what I'm expecting you to do, submit those things to me, and I'm grading them. And I'm saying this because this is what I'm doing at North Carolina Central University right now. My class meets at 2:25 on Tuesday, Thursday, 2:25, we're all there. So I think we've got to have, otherwise we're leaving it's too loose. We're leaving it too loose. Now, parents are asking, are we grading this material? Is it going to count? Because if it's just busy work, then, why am I going to do it? If it's something that is going to have some meaning toward my grade, then I want to know that. So those are the things that I'm thinking we need to happen. A consistent, concise, and very clear messaging to our people on every level. On every level. This is how we're operating until something else happens. We don't know if we're going back to school until May 15th. We don't know if we're having proms. I appreciate the fact, Nakia, that you said we are going to have graduations, early college, not early college, but small schools, May 21st. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I wanted to unmute myself.
Okay, and for our larger schools?
Yes, ma'am. We have confirmed we will not be able to host graduation at North Carolina Central. We will host our May 21st graduations at one of our high schools. Again, based on if the restrictions regarding size of a crowd are lifted. We have confirmed our dates with the Cameron Center at Duke, and we will be able to host those events at Duke, given if our restrictions are released. And Ms. Fort Brown, would you like me to speak to some of the other things that you mentioned?
Yes, but let's get back to those restrictions. I think, we have, in this time, I think we have to really say maybe 2 or 3 people, and that's it. If that's how we have to go. So we can look at those. Yes, would you speak to the other things, please? The scheduling.
Yes, ma'am. And so I did see that Ms. Sidbury, who is part of the board meeting, did put into the chat. There are so many things that are going to be released in phase 2. I probably was not explicit in everything. We will be providing teachers and families and our community with some sample schedules, because we want to make sure that there is some organization and some system to the day. Moving forward, as we move within the next few weeks, there will also be videos and other content, as well as there is some digital content that they can use. And in terms of the assignments, we want to really be very clear that although our work is supplemental, we do want to make sure that families, there is a preview and enrichment and acceleration opportunities when you look at our expansion in phase 2. We just finished spring break, and so our official launch is actually April 6th. We're launching a little early, so we kind of call this a soft launch, but the official launch for phase 2 is actually going to be April 6th. And I, really wanted to be like our board chair. I noticed he changed his background, and I wanted to just really display Ignite, because we are so excited about making sure that we have learning, not only at home, but online and beyond, recognizing that our communities, we need to meet the needs. We have some families that do have multiple devices and internet access, so they're going to be able to do some of those things online. We also have some families that may not, or just have a device, and that is the device that that parent or guardian needs to use for their work. So making sure that there's opportunities for each and every child, and then that contact. So teachers making that contact. Some of it will be very traditional, picking up the phone, which is, when I was a teacher, that's all we had. And we made I called all of my children when I was a high school teacher. Some of it might be via email, and they can get it on a smartphone or a device. And others that are very innovative, they're gonna, do a TikTok video and post it for their children to see. We wanna make sure that we're integrating all of that. Messaging, I agree with you 100%. You will see a very clear message. We're working closely with public affairs to make sure that message is clear, not only internally, but externally as well. The office hours will be posted on the school's website, so that teachers will know when they are available, and then parents and students will know when they're available. And if there is a time that you need to call someone and a teacher is not available at your school, that's why we have the general numbers, and we'll continue to reiterate that. And that has already been sent home to our parents and communities, as well as posted on our website.
Thank you. Now that was clear and very consistent. Thank you. I'm out.
Okay. All right. So we will actually, Xavier, I see you with your hand raised. I'm going to go to Matt. Matt wanted to chat. Then I'll go to you, Xavier, and then we'll have Bettina and Natalie to make their points. So Matt.
Thanks, Mike. I'll try to be concise. In administration, this is more of a, doing the work in real time, given how busy we've all been. Fewer questions and more kind of, one of your board members' thoughts around this. So on the academic side, I just want to speak to that first. I want to echo Steve's lauding of the administration for what's been done so far, and I'll talk about that briefly. But our educators, and I'm a consumer of the product that is DPS with 2 kids in school at the elementary level, and I'm seeing what our teachers are doing on a daily basis, how they're partnering with families and doing what they can. But I want to emphasize that online learning is not our core work. I want to pause and let that sink in for a minute. Online learning is not what we do. And given that, I want to encourage our administration to take a pause and figure that side of the work out. And Dr. Hardy, that's no criticism of what's been done. You and I have been in communication. I'm pleased with what I'm seeing, and yet I haven't heard a lot of hold the presses. We're in uncharted territory here, and we are. And so while putting spring break first is great, I'm in favor of us taking as long as we need to say this is a clear, coherent message. And again, Dr. Hardy, this is not a criticism that we haven't had that, but having been a classroom educator, we're asking the community, the world, the nation, Durham is asking for a complete shift. We heard it from our parents tonight, and I really think we need to pause, and whatever that date is, and you certainly don't have to take my recommendation, but whether it's April 5th, April 10th, April 15th, say we need time to completely shift how we do our work. So for whatever that's worth, I wanted to put that out there. I wanted to pair that with the data, and I'm not going to quote you figures, but we have two online charter schools in Durham, and we have national models of online charter schools, and we don't, if that was working, we'd be adopting that. So let's not sort of jump in and try to say that's what we're going to become. I think that's an argument for taking a pause and saying we will do what we can do. But I don't want us to try to keep doing our core business. And I'm going to tell you what I want us to do, and that's what's next. So what I want us to do in our district that is that is high poverty when you rank us in the state, that is high students of color, that needs a focus on equity, is to focus, and you all largely have, Dr. Mbanga, your team, focused on those issues that that help level the playing field. So food security, you've got high marks from me on the efforts that have been done. Income security for those that we are partnered with, that are employees, that's critical. Childcare, all the triggers that we're trying to overcome with all the spending that we're doing to reduce trauma for students. To me, that's the biggest factor in what is the crisis of the last 100 years. We ought to prioritize those and then think about the education. I am okay with us losing 3 months of education, and for all the negative that I may get, the feedback I may get on that, we are a vital piece of support for this community at so many levels. And when we're doing our core business of face-to-face education, we're very good at that, but that's not what we're doing today. I do want to bring up classified employees, again, just share a perspective. And I would like to see us have even clearer communication for them around pay, even if it is that we want to see them stay home. I understand what the governor is sharing, and if we need some legislation, we need it, but we need to protect folks. I'm seeing some of that in the federal legislation as I'm reading that. How that relates to unemployment. Dr. Arasi Atkins, I want to hear more about that for our folks that that aren't showing up. And Dr. Monk, thank you for sharing those numbers. So I hope this was coherent, but if it wasn't, I've been kind of saving this up for a few days. And in summary, taking care of our employees and taking care of those equity issues that are non-educational, where we control them, is my #1 priority. Taking a pause, Dr. Hardy, on the educational side to understand it's not our core business, and we'll do what we can when we can, is really important to me. So for whatever that's worth, thanks for the time.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you. You got it.
Yeah. I also want to thank you for what has the heavy lifting that you've done up to this point. There's a lot to be proud of. Much of what Matt just said is really along the same lane of the road that I was coming from. So I just kind of want to do 2 specific items, one for the instructional people and one for those who are hourly workers. On the instructional side, and again, this kind of flows into what Matt was saying. There are some educators I've followed around the state, social media and so forth, who've been talking about just being overwhelmed. I mean, we have teachers who have families who are not in a good place, who are caring for children and trying to do work. And I would just hope that those principals and supervisors who are asking teachers to move into phase 2, and thank you for the clear directions, Dr. Hardy and Ms. Siberry, on what's coming forth and the expectations, understand that some of those teachers aren't going to be able to operate in the same way that they've been doing. And that I hope every principal knows where their teachers are in that regard. Somebody that may be a star teacher may be in a place with a family where it's just a lot. They feel like you're asking a lot. When on a regular day and a regular time, it may feel like business as usual. So again, like Matt, I don't want to ask our instructional staff to operate business as usual, because it's not. I've got 2 grandkids on opposite ends of the spectrum. I got an 11th grader who's getting emails and so forth from the teacher, and I got an elementary, and they both have different, they're getting different experiences because they're in different schools. So again, a consistent expectation, but also that every supervisor understands clearly what their staff is going through. On the classified side, there was an article in the News and Observer yesterday where Wake County was asking for guidance from the state on how to pay hourly employees. And then Charlotte Mecklenburg's Board of Education went even further and said, can we just grant emergency authority to pay all employees who can't work remotely? And so if we as a board need to also ask of the state to get some help in that regard, I personally would like to see that too. Thank you.
Bettina and Natalie, which one would like to go first? I don't see Bettina on video. Natalie, you want to go?
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, well, there you are. There you are. Okay, Bettina, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll try to keep this brief. I have a lot of questions, but I agree also with what Matt and Xavier have said. We are in an unprecedented time, and I know that we're trying to do the best we can with the laws that we have, but we got to do something different because we are putting our staff, I think, at risk every day, and that concerns me when we have orders from the state level and from our local level to say people need to make sure they can stay at home as much as possible. I'm wondering if we can do a resolution or do something strong to say to the state that we need support in this, where our legislators have paid people before who were not able to work due to natural disasters in our state, and we need that now because I worry that people are making decisions every day about being at home with my children, trying to get paid, and like figuring that out, and that's a stress that I would like to alleviate if we can for staff. For Ms. Atkins, a question around the FMLA and new legislation. How are we communicating that with staff members so that that's clear about what needs to happen?
Sure. So it just was passed on March 18th. Just today, we got the posters, like today at 4 o'clock. So tomorrow, we're going to be on a Zoom call, I think at 1 o'clock, with principals and central office leaders to answer any questions that they may have. We had a very brief summary, a paragraph for each of those items, the eligibility requirements, whether or not it's paid or unpaid, whether or not it's 100% or 2/3 pay. By the way, as you know, this is not our rules. We're being as flexible as possible with staff. So for example, if someone says that they are sick, we're not asking for the documentation. We're being as flexible as possible. We will give the 100%. We're not looking over anyone's shoulder. We are going to be as lenient with the federal guidelines as we possibly can. So to answer your question, we're going to be answering any questions for principals and central office supervisors tomorrow, and then we're going to be rolling out the posters widely distributed through staff. We'll have our classified central office supervisors and leaders make sure that they verify and sign off that they're communicating that information with classified staff as they come in, and have some mechanisms for employees who may not have access to the internet. But we will also post the posters, advertise the posters on the front page of our website. Again, we just got them today at around 4 o'clock today. So I'm going to work with our public affairs department to make sure that that is widely known and distributed, and to be as succinct and clear as possible. On that note, if I could, because that question about being concise and clear and communicating, we have been communicating with staff internally via our principals as well as central office leaders. What we can do is go ahead and do an all staff email to be a little bit more succinct. We actually did calendars with a day-by-day options for staff, all staff, classified staff, certified staff, a day-by-day accounting all the way up until May 15th. So I feel like we have been very clear, but one thing that we may work on is to do an all staff email. We have been utilizing the support of our wonderful principals and central office leaders and we've asked for their feedback about, is this clear? Is it understandable? So much so to the point we also gave a script and talking points for every calendar and for any new change that pretty much it's twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week, new changes. And so we do want the board and the community to know that we are working with our principals and central office supervisors with talking points, like I said, with a script, but we will do a better job of communicating that out to maybe an all staff in a little bit more succinct way. So I'm sorry, I kind of meandered there, Bettina.
No, that was great. Thank you. I think as much as I know this just happened, so as quickly as we can get that information out to staff so they can utilize what they need to make sure they're taking care of themselves during this time will be really important. On the academic side, Dr. Hardy, how do students get the packets?
We partnered with Julius's, Dr. Monk's team, as well as transportation, and so coordinated with our 81 sites. And we also leveraged opportunities for staff, many of our classified employees, as well as principals, teachers, and other certified staff who wanted to provide support. So we distributed packets Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at our 81 distribution sites. And we will repeat that same thing when we launch phase 2, which will begin April 6th. So that will occur April 6th, 7th, and 8th. Also, one of the reasons as we move into phase 2, as teachers are contacting students, we want to make sure that if a packet was available for phase 1, which was our end of course and end of grade assessed areas, to ask the student if they were able to receive the packet. And if they do not have internet access, the packets are also digitally available on the parent resource site that I mentioned. Then we have talked with principals about potentially mailing those or figuring out other ways to make sure that we can make sure students have that particular information. To Mr. Sears and Mr. Kason's point, we recognize that we are in uncharted territory. And we want to make sure that we are providing as much choice and flexibility to our families as possible, which does include resources that are available digitally and also resources that are available in print.
And one more question, this could be for you or for Tip. How do families know that they need to get the packets? Is this a robocall? Or are we doing just our social media posts? Is it a combination of all of that? It seems like that may not be clear from our public comment that every family knows what to do.
It has been all of the above, social media and robocalls. We have made 8 robocalls on COVID-19 related matters, including closures and the availability of packets to every family in the district. Now, we have learned that sometimes not everybody gets the robocalls, but we have used multiple methods to try to reach out to each family. Our schools have done their own efforts as well. But if I can take a look here, yeah, we have made 8 robocalls in English and Spanish. We've provided DPS specific updates at the COVID-19 resource pages. So we've done a lot. I think one thing that will help us is with the rollout of the Ignite effort, as part of our phase 2, we're going to create more traffic, a more centralized place for all of that information. Every school website has a link to the Parent and Guardian Curriculum Resources Center, where parents can download the packets. So it's all there. We've blasted the community and we've shared it, especially at those communities that we're serving the meals for. We just need to do more.
Yeah, and I understand it sounds like we're using every lever that we have to make sure families are aware. So I also want to say thank you all. I know you've been working nonstop, not just since school ended, but even before school ended, to be thinking through and troubleshooting what can we do and how do we make sure we respond well. Durham led in that response and closing early, so I really appreciate that and the work that the staff has done, and not our leadership, but also every staff member who's in a school building. I do have one more kind of ask as we continue to roll this out, is to really be explicit in how we think about equity and we're talking about continuing to do any instruction. When I think about access to devices, access to the internet, and that's for students and for staff, like ensuring that everyone has those things. How do we make sure if students or families who have exceptional children, who have even AIG, to think about English language learners, like how we be really explicit, and as we roll out these things, this is the ways that we're also supporting those families. I think that's just going to be extremely important as we continue to move forward.
All right, very good. And Natalie, let's hear from you.
I will try to keep it short. I really want to express gratitude to our leadership and our team. I know that the last time we met was 2 weeks ago, and I felt really strongly that Minnie and I were pushing our district to lead and close in the face of this pandemic. And it shows remarkable leadership to be able to hear that concern and flex in that moment and do the extraordinary work that this team has done in very stressful times. And I want us to acknowledge the stress that this is for every student, every family, but every employee, from the custodians and the bus drivers all the way to the superintendent. And I'm so appreciative of everything you guys have done to bring us to this point. As we go forward into uncharted territory, it feels like Durham's mayor has led with his stay-at-home order. And we almost need to be thinking through how we can have our employees follow that, and whether it takes a resolution to the state board, to the General Assembly, to the governor, whatever we need to draft in language that says we need to be encouraging non-essential employees to actually stay at home and care for their families. And we need some assurance. I don't know how much money we have. I don't know if the state money is going to continue to flow, but that we will be able to continue to pay our folks during this uncertain time so that they know that they're going to be able to feed their families and pay their bills. So if that's something that this board could get behind and that we could draft, I think that language would be really powerful, and that action would be powerful. It doesn't feel like we have strong federal leadership. It does not feel like, it feels like the state leadership is coming along, but I think we need to be explicit in asking for what we need to do to keep our employees safe. And it pains me in the public comment for a lot of our employees to feel that they're at risk. So I almost think we should be saying to our employees, if you think you're at risk at all, please stay home. And I don't know if we've communicated that message. On the front of technology, I agree with Matt that we're not a technology district, and we're certainly not a one-to-one district. But I almost want us to see if we can get devices and hotspots to families so that students can use this for a tool for connection, if nothing else. And, I find even these Zoom meetings help lift my spirits. I don't know if they do for y'all. They're fun in a different way. It's good to know and see that other people are still out there, still in their stay-at-home quarantine. So I'd like to know if we've done any surveying of our students and families to say who has online, digital access at home, who needs devices, whether we could get to a point where we get one in each household that needs it. I don't think there's a reason for devices to sit up at schools unused. And then I always have concerns, and I know y'all do too, about how we're meeting the needs of our EC students during this time, how we're meeting the needs of our AIG learners, how we're continuing to push ahead high school students and help them with counseling needs for figuring out what college they're going to in the fall. All these questions that everybody brought up in our public comment. I almost think that it would be great to have a FAQ come from most of the questions that were common threads in those comments and share those back with the community, or maybe have us meet more regularly during this time when people have a lot of questions. It seems like every 2 weeks, the world is changing really, really rapidly. That's just kind of some of my thinking, but I really appreciate everything that y'all have done to get us to this point.
Thank you, Natalie. And just really quickly, I just wanted to say I do think that we need a resolution really pushing the need to pay our classified staff while they can't come in. I do not think that we should have our classified staff in the buildings, but I know that we're bound by some regulations that are set by the state. We as a board should work towards language in a resolution to move the State Board of Education, the governor, to make some sort of declaration that it's just best to keep our employees at home and to pay them as as they are following the executive orders from our mayor, and soon we'll have one from the county, and I expect one to be coming from the state. I sit on in a lot of conference calls, with the governor's staff and county staff, city staff, and so forth, and we see these things coming. And, we continue to advocate for pay for our classified staff, but until the General Assembly moves, we're kind of handcuffed at the regulations that are already in place, the laws that are already in place. So I do like the idea of continuing to push out the message. If you are not feeling well, if you feel you are susceptible to the virus, COVID-19, please stay home. You get your 100% pay, but we want to make sure that you're healthy and you're taking care of your family. Now, on the side of the teachers, I do think there needs to be flexibility as it relates to principals and the clear message. We're all kind of in this together, if you're in education or not. I'm working from home. My wife is working from home. We have 3 kids. We have to do the education as well. We have our jobs as well. We're constantly in meetings. We're constantly helping and doing schoolwork and so forth. We all have to sacrifice just a little bit there. So I think there should be an expectation of some level of work. It doesn't have to be all at the same time, but some level of work, and then some level of being able to care for home. And we need to make sure that it's clear. I've heard stories from throughout the district from different principals that have different expectations. And I don't know how that is communicated down, but we want to make sure that there's maximum level of flexibility for our staff, maximum level flexibility for our teachers, to make sure that we're able to provide that support for the students, but also allow them to provide that support for home as well. That's very, very important. So what I would like to see us do is really start to think about what resolutions, what advocation we can do towards the governor, the state legislature, and other entities to push for the things that our employees need, especially in the pay area and being able to stay at home. We want to make sure when this is lifted, and we will get past this, that we have everybody back in our schools running like this has never happened. And in order to do that, we have to make sure our employees and our classified staff, our teachers, everyone is safe and protected at this time, and that's financially and health-wise. So, administration, this did take a long time, but I think it was very, very necessary. The questions that were asked, it was very necessary. The information that was given, and we want to make sure that this communication continues to be this transparent, because in order for us to make it through with our 34,000 students, and even the other students that are not in DPS that are partaking in the food and services, we have to continue this level of communication. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and answering every single question. That is extremely important to the environment that we're in now. So I'm going to move on from that into the operational services. I'm sorry. And after my comment, I wanted Dr. Mabanga wanted to make a little bit of a statement as it relates to this, and then we're going to go right into the budget conversation.
Thank you, Chairman Lee. I just wanted to react to some of your comments. board comments as well, some of the comments that we heard from our parents as well, our teachers. So I'm very grateful to hear from you board members about this unfamiliarized territory. You know, most of the time, I even said this to my colleague superintendent this morning in our conference call. Sometimes we do overreact in some situations. When we're talking about online, you can see the stress level of our teachers, and you heard those comments as well. In my role and working with my staff as well, we have to find the balance, making sure that we know our staff members, they have family members that they're dealing with. And at the same time, we also know there's a need here with our parents and our students that they need to be educated. We have to find that balance. And I'm really grateful that you all realize that it's really challenging work. As we're talking about 3-to-1, we're not prepared to do this kind of work. We cannot just flip and start giving 100% or premier class instruction in a territory that we're not familiarized with. My second comment is regarding the pay. We're very creative to be able to make sure that all our staff members get paid. I understand the intent that the desire of us reaching out to the school board, state school board as well, to make sure that everybody getting paid, and to the governor level. That's definitely our most desire as well, because we want everybody to be safe. But as we going to that area, making sure that we have that flexibility, everybody can stay home. We also have an expectation here that we need to continue feeding our students. So my question, there's a dilemma there as we try to get everybody stay home, and then who's going to be able to continue to do this outstanding work that our parents and our community are very appreciative of feeding our students. So I just wanted us to know that that's where we have to struggle a little bit to find that balance. Safety of our employees is number one. We really want all of them to get paid and stay home, but also we have a need here of our students getting fed. So I just wanted you guys to understand that we're struggling with that, how to find that balance to make sure we're servicing our families as well as for our folks also to stay home. It's not easy juggle, and I just wanted you all to be just aware of that challenge that we're facing. Thank you for your feedback.
Dr. Hardy, I understand you had your hand up. I apologize, Dr. Mabenga. We were going to go to the budget, but I was made aware that Dr. Hardy had her hand up as well.
I'm good. Dr. Mabenga said it all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move to budget.
All right, budget. I'm going to go first, then I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Lucero. This is really a tough time. As we started this conversation about bringing to you our budget, the initial price tag was pretty much $17 million that we're going to bring to you. If you all can recall, for the past 10 years, we never got past $7 million. So we're very ambitious. We said our teachers and our classified employees deserve better. That has been my intent. And I've done it for the past 2 years that I have been here producing that budget, making sure that our teachers' supplements has been increased since I have been here. So we are in a very unprecedented moment. And I think Mr. Anwar asked the question whether or not we're intending to have everybody employed. That's my most desire, to make sure that everybody's going to be employed. As this COVID-19 started and all that kind of stuff, and I knew the county were going to have about $15 million budget increase this year. All the revenue they were going to get was about $15 million, and our ask was going to be about $17 million. And I knew at some point, with the goodwill from the community, they could have raised taxes and make sure that we get what we needed. So getting to COVID-19, I had to back off with a couple of items, talking with my staff. And one of the items was pretty much $15 minimum wage. And the second one was about teacher supplements that I was able to back off. I said, it's going to be deferred, depending on how revenue that county commission they're going to be able to collect this year. So with the budget that we're going to present to you, so we bring it to you additional $14 million instead of $17 million. Again, as you know, I work for your pleasure. And you're gonna see all those items that has been deferred at any point. If you wanna bring them back in, it's your pleasure, and I'll be glad to include them to my next budget. So that's my comments. Then I'm gonna pass it on to Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Mabenga. Board members, we are in unprecedented times. Our budget will change. There's no questions about it. We started this budget talking to you back in December. And as we began the budget process, we talked about a lot of different things we'd like to have in, and we had a lot in that regard at our $17 million ask. Still what we need in every shape and form, but we did have to make some reductions, understanding that where we're headed, we need to probably continue the course and make sure that the county provides us what we're looking for. I'm going to put the presentation up on the screen so that we can go through it. And remember that as we go through this presentation, we are at a point where we, in accordance with our MOU with the county, we're to provide them in March what ask we're going to be asking for the 2021 school year. So based on this presentation, we need to make a determination of what we want to move forward. The 14 million, the 17 million, if you decide to put back in the two items that we'll talk about shortly. But we do have to make that decision tonight to move forward with the county. We've had discussions with the county, and they know where we are right now from that standpoint. And we've told them we've been at 17 million since December. But at this point, we have to make a decision of what number we will go forward with to ask for the county request. So now I'm going to share with you on the screen the presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions at the end, and also discuss about the superintendent's proposed budget book that can be found on our website at dpsnc.net. And it's under, if you scroll to the right-hand side of the screen, you can go to resources. And then once you get onto the resource page, you can scroll down to budget on the right-hand side in the white area. And you can select that, and then you can see the presentation as well as the budget book that's been updated. So I'm going to put the presentation up now so that we can move forward and have discussion a little bit later. Where's I got to find it? Are you able to see that? I might have to move it to the other screen. There it is.
I don't see that you're sharing your presentation. I think the host have to. I
think
there it is. All right.
Up.
There you go. We can see it now, Paul.
Okay. I'll get it to post to the whole screen so we can see it. In planning for this, the pandemic, COVID-19 really took front and center stage in regards to the development of the budget. But at the end of the day, we're all painfully dealing with this recession that we're in the middle of or just beginning. It's going to be difficult for the state. It's going to be difficult for the county. It's going to be difficult for the local school districts. But it will change in regards to the budget that we're presenting tonight once we get more and more information in regards to how it's going to affect us. Again, as we've spoken over time, we go back to the Great Recession of 2009. The state has still not put in the funding that was required. We're 6% below pre-recession levels in our education funding. On an annual basis, we are $19 million less per year than in 2009, and it spans across all categories of our funding from the state, from teachers to staff development, to supplies and materials, textbooks, and capital outlay funds.
Paul,
yes.
Sorry, Paul. We are only seeing the title page, and it's not in the presentation mode that we're seeing. So we're only still seeing the title page here.
Okay.
Okay, there we are. Okay,
Is it
we
better?
can see that now.
Okay.
Yes, that's in presentation mode now. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. So again, we're at a point where we're $19 million annually less each and every year. With that, we've had local support since 2008, 2009 for the purpose of serving our students. But at the end, it's taking a toll as we continue to move forward. Those pre-existing budget uncertainties with COVID-19, we're all facing that. And the key here is that, you know, as we've spoken before, for the first time, North Carolina General Assembly failed to pass a budget, a full budget for the purpose of the current fiscal year. They come back into session in April, late April. They may be called back by the governor earlier to deal with some of the situations that we're dealing with right now about school closure, payments of our personnel, and that has to be determined by the General Assembly. They're the voice that makes those final decisions on how we have to, what funding will be available for the purpose of us being able to provide the support to our employees of Durham Public Schools. Consequently, with no additional state money this year, we provided our classified staff with a salary increase. And for that purpose, we were able to pay it in December as part of our classified salary study and raise. Nobody received less than 1%. Others received on an average of 4.4%. But we could only start it in December and carry it through the end of the fiscal year. We could not go retroactively back to July 1 because there was not enough funds provided because the state did not pass a budget. So we actually captured all classified employees in this salary increase. We provided all of them with funding basically from local funds because there were not additional funds put in the budget from the state for salary increases. We've also put in supplements for teachers. That was able to go retroactive to the beginning of the year because that's all local money that was budgeted and was planned for. And they also received a step increase in their years of experience. But we have tried time and time again to ensure that we are supporting our staff. And I commend Dr. Mabenga and the board and the county for providing the support and the funds for us to be able to do what we could do this fiscal year. Since 2008, 2009, we all know that the majority of our funding has been provided locally other than salary increases and benefits from the state. And we have to be thankful for the county commissioners for being by our side and assisting us with our local budgets, as well as other districts that have had to lean on their county commissioners time and time again since the recession. Our priorities have certainly shifted for the district. This year, because of the General Assembly not passing a budget, aren't really giving us clear guidelines for the remainder of the year, especially those employees that don't have any sick leave or annual leave balances that cannot come in or cannot come into work or cannot do their jobs remotely. This is putting us in a bad position as a school district, but all school districts are facing that. And we're just going to have to continue to work with our counterparts at the state level to try to get them to make some decisions that will support continued funding for all employees. But at this time, we have to deal with situations of, from a financial standpoint, of either work, use annual or sick leave, or unfortunately, at this point, there's no pay for non-working. And we just have to continue the fight to try to get the state to chime in and make decisions on our behalf. Budget request components for this year's Superintendent's 2021 budget. We still are asking for a lot of money from the county, but these are dollars that are necessary for us to continue operations and provide the support for our staff. The majority that we look at every year go into salary and benefit cost increases for our certified and classified employees, enrollment growth adjustments to maintain the service levels for growing student populations, and that means additional allocations to the schools for the purpose of their enrollment growth and based on our formulas for allotments. Again, our fixed increase costs are utilities and insurance, our staffing requirements for students with disabilities and English learners that the state does not support at the levels that we would like because the needs are there and they are ever growing. The nice thing about this year is we did receive some additional funding from the state because of our enrollment growth. As a county, we have gone over 40,000 students in enrollment, with 33,000 of those being Durham Public School and 7,000 being charter schools. We look forward to continued growth in Durham Public Schools. We show a little gain as we look into the 2021 projections for the purpose of ensuring that we give additional positions out to our schools, but also with the understanding of if enrollment does not meet our projections, we will not have the funding to support that in this tight budget year. As you can see, the notes at the bottom, we grew by 761 students. As far as the county goes with our DPS student enrollment and charter school enrollment, we are looking to increase our enrollment growth for the upcoming year by 100 students for DPS and then 300 students for charter schools at this time. When we've been having discussions over the meetings prior to this, as Dr. Mabenga mentioned, our request was at $17 million. We actually reduced it by $3.1 million. And as he mentioned, it was the $15 per for the living wage, and also another $1.4 million for the supplements for certified teachers and certified staff. Those will be reflected in the next slide as we move them from this revised funding request at this time for the purpose of us giving you this presentation tonight. So again, as we look through this, we look at our certified, we're going to project a 3% increase from the state. We hope that we will get some funding for all certified staff. And to do that, we would be looking at needing $960,000 for our certified staff. Our classified staff, $750,000. And if you look at the next two items, health insurance and retirement, those two items are very close to the amount that we're asking for salary increases in total. Those are ever increasing costs that we're just having to absorb and deal with as a local district. This also pains us when we're doing our budget, and the state does not provide these exact dollars that we need for each individual that we have in state positions. So therefore, we have limited buying powers in our dollar allotments for the purpose of state allotments to schools. And it becomes an extra burden on the school districts because of the high increasing costs in our benefits. We also have the $500,000 for utilities and insurance increases. These are always needed because our insurance policies are going up, as well as our utilities and other contracts that we have. The other $1 million we had in there was for our EC staffing requirements. This is to provide us additional funding for our students with high needs, ensuring that we can establish classrooms for the purpose of new classes for our growing population. This is a $1 million ask. Last year, we funded it out of our fund balance for the purpose of us getting started. And now we're coming back to the county to ask for this $1 million and also $500,000 for support for English learners. We learned this year that interpreters that are paid out of our state ESL budget are no longer going to be able to be paid out of our state budget funds. So we're having to utilize local funds for this purpose. And we're asking $500,000 to support that and also the increased needs of our students. That comes out to your $5 million request for just salary benefits and ongoing needs that we have in Durham Public Schools. Also, the enrollment adjustment we're looking to request, $2.2 million, is for the purpose of the growth that we had from last year and increasing those positions in our budget for the purpose of supporting our schools, giving us a total request of our operating budget of $7.5 million. I would say without a doubt that these are the needs that we need to have in our budget to sustain where we are right now. Anything shy of that is going to put us in a bind for the purpose of moving forward and continuing the same levels of service. We're also asking for the $4.6 million that we asked for last year for capital outlay. If you remember, the county did provide us funding for capital outlay, but it was it was based on local option bond funding, which doesn't give us the flexibility that we need as a district to make repairs in our schools. It can only be used for capitalized projects. And with that said, it's helped us because we've been able to get some projects underway that are much needed in our $700 million bond that we need for our schools. But it did not give us the needs to do the maintenance, the routine maintenance that needs to go on in schools. Again, it can only be used for capital projects, whether it's roofing, whether it's, you can paint with it, which is kind of interesting, but you can't put down carpet. But we need those dollars to make on an annual basis to ensure that we can repair our schools in a timely manner and keep them from running into issues that we could prevent with annual preventative maintenance. Also, when we talk about our budget, charter schools is a big part of it. When we look at the $7.5 million need from that standpoint, the charter schools are going to get an additional $1.7 million almost of our need. We are asking for that this year in our budget request for the purpose of ensuring that the $7.5 million that we asked for if we do get it, that we will be able to use it for the purpose of of Durham Public Schools and not have to turn it over to the charter schools. And the 491,000 is about the growth, the 300 students growth that we expect from charter schools. With that, you know, $2 million, $2.1 million will go directly to charter schools if approved. Bringing our total up to the $14.3 million that we are asking for. When we look at our deferred needs, as we discussed previously, we have a lot of deferred needs for the purpose of us making sure that we move this school district forward and we can support our students and they can work in an environment and learn in an environment that is expected of each individual. On the top, you see the employee compensations. Those are the two deferred items that Dr. Mabenga spoke about, $3.1 million in total that we pushed to the deferred needs. Moving again to reduce our student to teacher, student to device ratios, we would be looking at $1 million to reach 3.1 from that standpoint. Again, that is a need, but at this time we cannot ask for that. We also discussed counselors, adjusting that ratio from 330 to 1 to 300 students to 1 counselor. To do that, another $1 million. And as you can see, and as we talked about all these needs, our instructional support needs alone would be $3 million. We also have talked time and time again in regards to our custodial program, the consumable supplies that we need. We're going through more and more. And with the COVID, we would need even more. But that's a one-time thing that we're dealing with currently in our operating budget. But we would need another $2.8 million to ensure the custodial personnel are 12-month employees and that we have the consumable supplies that we need. Also looking to develop as we develop our strategic planning area and the need for an additional position to support and work with our strategic planner, Matthew Palmer. We look to this as an additional need, but we can't really afford it today. But we want to keep it on the books as an additional position to help us as we move forward with our redistricting and our class size issues that we have to deal with on an annual basis with the changes in legislation for K-3 class sizes. Total needs $9 million. Still a significant amount of money that we will be working in the future to try to get from the county for the purpose. Hopefully the General Assembly will turn and give us these types of supports that we need in our budget, especially in the instructional support area. But at this time, we want to keep these on the table for the purpose of knowing that we have additional needs that are true needs for the district. As we look to our current summary of the request to the county, we're looking at our operating funds. We need the $7.5 million that we're proposing for the increase. We want to get 2.1 for the charters, adding up to our $9.7 million request for our operating funds. Also, you see in here the other local funds that we receive from the county for the Whitted School, district-wide pre-K, and also our building improvement, where we're wanting for capital funds an additional $4.6 million, giving us our $14 million request. This is just, this is our proposal from the standpoint of administration to work with the county in trying to get these money is the critical piece of our pie, because they're needed to continue the operations as we as we see it today. Let's be reminded that we have today is a superintendent budget presented to you all. On the 9th DPS budget hearing, if we have one, we have one tentatively scheduled, but we haven't finalized that. To hear what the public has to say about the budget. April 23rd, budget updates if necessary, to get to the county commissioners before they start moving forward with their final plan. And that's based on if we decide we need to make further adjustments to our request based on things that the General Assembly might put in place. County manager will present on May 11th, his recommended budget. May 19th, we'll begin Board of County Commissioners budget workshops through June the 2nd. And they're planning to take action, the Board of County Commissioners adopting their budget on June the 8th. With all the wild cards we have out there, again, we have spoken to the county and told them that our ask is going to be high and that we would be supporting that because of the needs of our district. Do we have any questions regarding this presentation about what you may think, changes you may want to make? At this time, we're open for those questions.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Really appreciate that. I'll open up the floor to the board. We'll have Minnie start. She has her hand up there first. We'll have Minnie start with the questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'm unable to vote for this decrease because of whatever. As you stated in the very beginning, we have gone with our tail between our legs, begging for so long and not getting what we actually deserved. And to think that we're going to go back and ask that classified employees don't get the $15 an hour that city employees get and that county employees get is ridiculous. No, I'm not going to be able to vote for that. I'm tired of Durham Public Schools always being, oh, we won't ask for it. We're gonna cower down. We know that this is a bad time. No, we're gonna ask for what it is we need. And so we keep deferring everything. This is why we're in the situation we're in right now with the maintenance issues, wrapping up pipes with towels and stuff. We couldn't winterize the schools. We were afraid to host the playoffs because we knew that the temperature was going to go down. No, it costs money to have a great school system. It costs money to have great teachers. So we have to supplement our teachers. That's one of the reasons the teachers we have stay with us. Other than that, the young ones who can get more money go on to Wake County and go to Chapel Hill. Some of them even go as far as to Charlotte. We cannot continue to try to operate a school district in Durham, North Carolina that prides itself on being not only the city of medicine, not only housing Duke University, housing North Carolina Central University, Durham Technical Community College, being the home of the Research Triangle, next to Silicon Valley, being an intelligence place. We cannot continue to try to sell Durham Public Schools if we can't be a first-class district. And we have to be a first-class district because the people in Durham, our county commissioners, our city council, our foundations work toward being that. We can't continue to just be the low man on the totem pole, going always begging and taking crumbs. We can't do that. Now, we have to ask for what it is we need. I sit on the board of directors for the state of North Carolina, and I'm embarrassed when I hear these districts say, oh, well, yeah, all of our kids are one-to-one. Wilson, North Carolina, Moore County's been one-to-one since 2009. Here we are 3-to-1. It's embarrassing. you know, and to say, we're Durham, we are DPS. Yes, we are. And we need to feel like that, and we need to treat our people like that. The way you get an employee to be loyal to you is to make them feel that they have something to be loyal for and loyal to. And so we've got to honor them. And so we have to make sure our county honors them. Oh yeah, we got the COVID-19 virus, everybody got it. But nobody's talking about cowering down, except nobody has said anything about not having their budgets meet what they asked for. Nobody but Durham Public Schools. We're not going to go there. I'm not going to be able to vote for that. I believe we need to ask them for what we need and fight for what we need. And then let our county decide, the people that pay the taxes, decide whether they're going to force the county commissioners to give us what we need. We got children that don't have computers. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, and we're in Durham. So no, I'm not gonna be able to vote for that.
Okay. Thank you, Minnie. I appreciate that. Who would like to speak next?
I'll speak after Minnie, which is always a bad idea, but I really appreciate the work that's gone into this. I know that we are trying to find a way forward when federal and state unemployment claims are at historic highs, that the stock market is at historic unrest and lows. But I agree with Minnie that we need to make sure that we put this $15 an hour in for our classified employees. We need to figure out some way to take care of those. We've been trying to get there for years, and to cut that out seems very short-sighted. I know y'all are going backwards, looking at the budget, reviewing contracts that we have to see if there's other cuts that we can make. I'm hoping we might have a little bit of utility savings this year, for instance. Who knows what we might find digging. But we've got to make sure that we take care of getting people to 15 an hour. Our instructional assistants, we need to know if we can get them there. You know, they're working so hard. And no, I'm like many concerned that we don't have enough technology. And if this gets protracted, we need to put some budgetary dreams and aspirations in there. And I think the county will go to fund balance for us if needed to really make sure we could quickly get to 1-to-1. So let's be a little more aspirational and just ask for it as we start these conversations. That's how I'm feeling about it. I really appreciate y'all's work.
Very good. Appreciate that. Xavier.
Okay, I got two screens open. I had to get over there. So I don't feel like, based on our timeline, that this is cowering down. To me, this is a district who's trying to figure out ways to go forward. We just finished saying these are unprecedented times. We have businesses that aren't operating. I've talked to some county commissioners, and I know that we've got some crazy things that's going to happen with the budget and income. So from the time, looking at the précis, we go back to my other screen, the administration placed in the précis that if the General Assembly presents significant changes before the required deadline of May 15th, we will engage the Board of Education and revise the request to the county. I see this as a fluid document, as a starting place. A vote for this does not mean this is it. I do understand that we could just push everything over and say, well, let's fight it out at the county level. That's something we have to decide as a board. But for what the administration has put together, this is responsible and a move in a timeline that we could adjust later as we see what the real impact of these unprecedented times are going to give. The things on the deferred needs are very important. But the things that we placed in the state mandated salary, benefits, and costs, these are things that the state should have been funding all along. We say it all the time, but there's some very powerful things in that section too, that did not get moved to deferred needs. So it's a balanced approach. That's just my viewpoint.
Steve or Bettina, would you like to chime in?
Go ahead, Bettina.
I don't know that I have much different things to say. I think we are in unprecedented times, and I do think we'll end up having to revise this budget probably a couple of times before May happens. So I think as long as we are ready for that, I'm all about making sure our staff has what they need to support. So I would support putting the $15 an hour back in the budget as well.
So I just want to thank the Paul and I'm sure Alex was part of this. The budget presentation itself is great. I think it's clear. I think the document, the supporting document, lays out how we're spending our money in a way that is going to be very helpful, because I think I agree with Bettina. I'm completely convinced we're going to be going through a revision process several times as the financial impact of this virus becomes clearer. I'm standing in agreement with going to our original request and taking that to the county. I don't want to be making priority decisions tonight about what's funded and what's not funded, which is what that feels like. The several of us have already said, and I agree, that getting the pay up to $15 an hour is very important to me. It's important to the whole board. And I want to leave it intact at this point in our process. If we have to make changes, and I suspect we will, I want that to be on the table as part of what we're fighting for, and not take it off at this point, because I think it's I want to see us weigh that in the context of the entire $400 million budget and not walk away from it. I think we're going to have to go through that entire budget. I think that's going to take a much more extensive process than we've had before. I want to see some creativity at who sits at the table, trying to get representation from the schools at the table as we go through that budget. And there are a number of places that we're going to have to look very hard at as we make decisions on priorities. But for right now, I want to leave the original request intact.
Okay, very good. Matt has mentioned that he didn't really have a comment, but what I will say is, yes, this is unprecedented times. Absolutely. It's scary times financially for everyone, but that doesn't mean we can't still continue to strive to be the #1 district in North Carolina, even the United States. We have to continue to push. One thing that we know from this experience is that we have to be prepared for this sort of thing moving in the future. And that doesn't necessarily only mean technology being one-to-one. That means we have to be able to be prepared with our staff. We have to continue to keep the high level of staff that we already have. And in order to do that, we need to continue to grow as far as, rewarding and making this a district that you want to be a part of. And part of that is continue to push the envelope as much as we can with our rates. $15 an hour is absolutely necessary for us to continue to retain all of these classified staff, whatever it might be, from cafeteria workers to bus drivers to custodial staff. We want people to come here. And and when this happens next time, we want to be prepared for that. We want to start to look at technology. I agree with Matt, that's not our purview, but we have to be prepared for this sort of thing. We have these backup plans, you know, happening for seniors. We want to try to shift technology to seniors to handle that, but we also want to have our kindergartners having the same sort of access as well. That's something we can definitely move towards. When I got here on the board, I think we were like 7-1 technology, 6-7-1. Now we're at 3-1. We'll continue to move in that direction, and we have corporate people who want to help, so we can start to move down that path, and we're actually already working on that, and that's more information to come a little bit later. But I also want to point out, in order to keep our staff, our teachers, so forth, we need to add in the supplements as well. You know, one of the things that I've learned since I've been on the board is for many, so very, very early on, I was on the side of, all right, let's back up. Let's kind of not ask for that much because it's going to cause a problem with the county commissioners and so forth. And I will admit 100%, when I first heard the $17 million request, I said, whoa, wait a minute, we're going to have a problem with that. That's going to continue to cause that rift between the Board of County Commissioners and the Board of Education. But, you know, the more I thought about this, the more I'm feeling about we have to go into next year as if nothing happened. Our kids rely on us to move forward in the next year as if this never happened. This just happened to be a longer summer. They're going to be enriched this year. They're going to get what they need this year, but next year we need to hit the ground running. In order to do that, we need to retain and motivate our teachers to continue to be here. Part of our teachers and staff to continue to be here. Part of our strategic plan is to reduce teacher turnover. And if we continue to do those supplements like we've been doing, continue to grow it, we're competing with the districts around us, we're going to continue to keep our teachers. We met that goal this year. We met our first year goal this year. We have to keep pushing hard, continue. We can't let up off of the gas. Now, the battle between funding is going to be between the two boards. We need to continue to push and ask the county commissioners to help us push forward. Yes, revenues may be down. And I say may because who knows? We don't know what it would be like after this ban or this, you know, stay at home goes away. People might go out and buy extra stuff. We don't know. But what we can do is advocate what we need. They give us what they can or what we can win, and we do what we can with that. But I do think we keep the $15 an hour in, or I think we keep the supplements in, and we see what shakes out from there. Who knows? We may be able to find some other space somewhere else to draw down so that we can continue to keep that those rates growing. So it seems like it's the will of the board to right now keep that in. I mentioned the supplements. I do think we put it all out there, see what sticks. We just continue to fight for what we need. Mr. Kason.
Again, I do see separately what the administration is asking for and what we should fight for. We see it differently, obviously, as far as on what end of this process that should happen. So let me say this. If we're talking about still having the minimum wage, if we're talking about still having the teacher's salary supplement, then let me say that for years and years and years, we have increased mental health, but we have not done anything about the counselor ratio, which was an issue when I came in 2016. So if we're going to go full force from the top, from the front end, then I would say move that too. The additional professional counselors, 13 additional positions, because that's something I hear about all the time. If we're going to cherry pick parts of this that we want to fight for, that's something I want to fight for. If we're going to say, let's start with everything that we think we can try, and then if we have to whittle back, then I don't want to see it go forth without that part in it. And that makes it 18. I just want to be real clear.
That makes it 18. Okay. All right. Hey, that's what we're here for. That's what this discussion is about. for what we want to advocate for. And this is going to be a high hill to climb. I don't want anybody to make any mistakes here. That's going to be a high hill to climb. And I'm ready for that fight. I'm ready for that fight. I know we have community support, and we can go to that. We'll get what we need there.
Mike, I just want to jump in right here. Let me just jump in right here. Every time we have lowered our ask, they lowered it even more. Every time we went and say, oh, let's not ask for that because this is what happened. Then they said, oh, fine. So we're going to lower it even more. I'm with you, Xavier. We know that counselors, for having 400 people on a schedule, there's no way in the world you can give kids that kind of quality counseling that you should. So let's ask for what it is we need to have a world-class system. I'm with it.
All right. So this is for action. Is that correct? I want to make sure. What is this action?
Yes, we need to determine what we're going to ask the county for so we can meet our MOU requirements with the county of asking in March so that they can begin preparing their budget for the county manager's presentation that will come in May.
Okay, so this is what I hear from our board, and we can kind of discuss it really quickly. I hear we would like to add, and we'll figure this out. We'd like to add the supplements, the $15, and the counselor additions. I think that puts it at 18 million, but I want to get your thoughts on that when we make this motion. Is that what we want to add in there? It's fine if you guys shake your head or up, down, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever it is. So I'll speak the motion. I'll just have somebody move it. That's a thumbs up from Manny. Thumbs up from Steve. Thumbs up from Bettina. Natalie. Yeah. Matt has a thumbs up as well. All right, so the motion will be to approve the superintendent's, let me get the right term that we got here, proposed budget. Is that okay for me to say the proposed budget?
Yes.
Okay. Got to explain those off. Okay. To approve the superintendent's proposed budget for fiscal year 2021 with the addition of the teacher supplements, $15 minimum wage, and the counselors. Is that correct? The counselor part of the budget. Those are the three things we were adding. Okay, so that's the motion. I'll have somebody so move that.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded, moved by Ms. Umstead, seconded by Ms. Byer, that we approve the superintendent's proposed budget for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 with the additions of $15 minimum wage, the counselors, and the supplements for teachers. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor say aye. Well, raise your hand, sorry. That's unanimous. All opposed, same sign, that's unanimous. And so that is approved. That is the last thing that we have on our agenda tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. I know you're in the comforts of your home, so you saved a little time traveling. Well, some of us are in the comforts of our home. I know there's a few people up at the office. I really appreciate you guys. For everyone watching, thank you guys. Thank you all for your flexibility and understanding where we had our little bit of trying to trying to grow into this. This may be one thing that we have to do periodically. We don't know when we're going to come back, so our work session may be in the same format. I think it worked out very well. I want to thank our IT group, our AV staff, Lorraine McNulty. She really kind of helped organize this and test this stuff out. Everyone who was involved in getting this Zoom meeting together, I have nothing but applause for you guys. I am so happy that you guys did it all. You guys got it together. This was very professional. It was done very well. And everything we did leading up to this, including trying to do the public comments. Thank you all so very much. I cannot express how proud I am of this team and what you guys pulled off in a short amount of time. So thank you all very much. You guys are awesome. I really appreciate it. And Chip, thank you for reading the public comments. I didn't realize we would have so many. It was very awesome. This experience was great. I look forward to doing this again if we need to. But outside of that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much. This was great. Thank you for being here.
I need a lozenge.
Mr. Lee, one little technical note.
Yes, please.
So putting those three elements in is an additional $4.1 million. So that brings the DPS subtotal of 9.4 plus the enrollment growth up to 11.6. But then in order for us to receive that, the charter component has to increase as well. So anyways, it gets us to 19.38 million is
okay.
So, that's because if we're going to receive the money, we have to accommodate for how much more additional the charters get and everything. And then just the last is that we don't know what the state is going to do. And so the $15 an hour assumes that the state is going to pass raises for classified employees that will help us get there. That's something that we'll have to just ongoing communication with the county, that if the state doesn't do that, our cost goes up because the majority of employees are state funded, and we rely on the state to partner with us in moving in that direction. So that's a fluid number.
Okay. Thank you for that technical note. I really appreciate it. We'll take note of that as we move forward to the application stage of this. Natalie, you did it. Natalie?
I know we love an adjournment, but did we have any resolution on a resolution? We were going to talk about a letter or resolution to the General Assembly, to the State Board of Ed. Are you going to take the lead on that, working with staff, or Bettina?
I would love to help support somebody in working with it. Now, I know you're really good at these, so I don't know if you want to work on it together.
Yeah, I'm happy
to. DAE has reached out. DAE has reached out that they were interested in helping, so they're watching, so we appreciate that. But we will. Minnie, are you saying something here? No, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
They can sign off on.
There you are.
We want this to be a board-driven.
Okay.
And we can have signatures, from the leaders of DAE for that sign-off signature.
Yeah. We could get input too as well. So, but we'll write it. We'll write it.
Could we take action to authorize Mike and Bettina to sign it on our behalf? Like, could we do that now so we don't have to come back together Zooming to do that? I don't know. We got an attorney on here.
That's a consensus. That's a consensus. That's a consensus thing, and I think everybody's consensus on that. That's not necessarily a vote. We'll sign off on it, but then we'll read it and officially approve it at a later meeting. Okay. All right. Okay. That's it. Drive safe. If you're driving, stay healthy. But other than that, we are adjourned. I don't have my mallet thing, so I'll just pretend like I'm hitting it here. There. All right. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great night.